Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. On today's show, a danger to life storm brings weather warnings to parts of the UK, with an emergency alert sent to millions at risk, telling them to stay indoors.
Yes, Storm Darragh has made landfall, leaving thousands without power, shutting major travel routes and cancelling flights and trains.
Plus, in sport, leaders Liverpool have the chance to extend their lead at the top of the Premier League when they take on Everton in the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. We'll hear from both managers.
It's Saturday, the 7th of December. Storm Darragh hits the UK with 90-mile-per-hour winds and waves of up to 7 metres. We'll be live in Wales this morning, where bridges have been closed, flights cancelled and, of course, trains delayed, with people told not to travel. South Korea's president apologises for plunging the country into political turmoil hours before a vote on whether to impeach him. The FBI offers a $50,000 reward to help find a gunman who killed a health insurance boss in New York. And rising from the ashes, Notre Dame Cathedral reopens 5 years after being destroyed by a fire. And together at Christmas, the Princess of Wales steps out for her annual carol concert and reflects on a tough year.
Also ahead, Pep Guardiola has attempted to play down his recent war of words with Jose Mourinho. We'll explain what's happened between the two.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on The Breakfast Show. Our top story this morning, a red danger to life weather warning is in place for parts of Wales and the southwest of England as Storm Darragh makes landfall. Winds of up to 90 miles per hour have already been recorded, with the Met Office warning of flying debris and falling trees in what they predict could be the worst storm the UK has faced in more than 2 years. Millions of people have been told to stay indoors and not to travel. Well, the red warnings cover parts of Wales and the southwest of England, and it will be in place until 11 o'clock this morning. Now, a separate amber warning, well, that's in place also, stretching from southern Scotland all the way down to Cornwall, and a yellow warning is in place for virtually all other areas. Well, late last night, the UK government sent this warning to millions of people at risk from the storm, telling them the conditions will be too unsafe to drive in and warning of significant disruption, warning of power outages, and urges people to prepare themselves with torches and other essential items. Well, the storm first hit Ireland. This was the scene in Galway. That was last night. Thousands were left without power. One person telling Sky News the winds were so strong they couldn't get out into their garden or check on their neighbours. Well, let's go live to Wales then, shall we, and speak to Lisa Dowd in Penarth and Charlotte Leeman in Bangor. Lisa, first, give us an update. What's it been like?
Yeah, I'm at Penarth. It's about 3 or 4 miles south of Cardiff, and to the side of me is the Severn Estuary here in South Wales, where it meets the Bristol Channel. Now, we're expecting those gusts to get stronger down the Bristol Channel and expect some quite large waves here about 11 o'clock when it is high tide. We know already in West Wales that gusts of up to 92 miles an hour have already been recorded, and it is causing plenty of disruption already. First of all, the bridges linking southwest England and South Wales, the Severn Bridge and the Prince of Wales Bridge, have been closed, as well as that Cardiff Airport is disrupted. Its runway is closed till around 11 o'clock, which is going to be causing disruption for people who are hoping to get away on a Christmas break to Lapland. The warning is for people not to travel if at all possible. There's likely to be trees and debris on the road. Thousands are without power here in Wales, also in southwest England as well, and in the East and West Midlands. And big concerns as well for the amber rain alert, which is spreading all the way down the west coast of the UK. We are expecting between up to 90 millimetres of rain between 3 and 6 hours at one time, which will be a big concern for this area because a few weeks ago they were badly affected by the flooding here. So that rain will be falling on already sodden ground, and there will be concerns for flooding.
OK, Lisa, for now, thank you for that update in Penarth. Charlotte Leeming is in Bangor for us. Charlotte, what's the situation where you are?
Well, Leah, I've been broadcasting from storms and extreme weather for more than 20 years now. I don't think I've ever experienced gusty winds like this. We've had to just come in slightly unsheltered because there is debris flying all over the place. And, of course, we've got to be safe like everybody else. But gusts around 90 miles per hour. It is so rare for the Met Office to alert a red weather warning, meaning danger to life. And we were amongst those millions last night who got those warnings on their phones from the government. That shows you how serious it was. The phones were going off a number of times within an hour last night. The phone had a siren that went on for about 10 seconds and then vibrated, and then in Welsh and English was this warning saying, please stay inside between 3 and 11 a.m. It is going to be dangerous. It's going to be treacherous. Where we are next to the pier, you'll be able to see in the next hour or so when it gets light. There's supposed to be an event here today with thousands of people, school children, choirs, a concert, fireworks. It all had to be cancelled. Months of planning would have filled this car park, and they made the decision. They said very quickly last night it could not go ahead. I mean, devastating for people. As you know, we've heard it's a busy time where people go to Christmas concerts and fairs and go shopping, but there's no way that any of that is possible. This is the sort of weather where you're struggling to stand up and you're struggling to shut your front door. It's really very gusty out here, and the advice is for people to do stay indoors till at least 11 a.m. because it's pretty treacherous out here.
Stay safe. Thank you for that update there. I'm now joined by Sky meteorologist Kirsty McGabe and our correspondent also, Shaman Freeman-Powell. Thank you for joining us this morning. Shaman, what's been the fallout from the rest of the UK?
Well, it's left lots of people waking up this morning facing travel disruptions. I must admit, I was quite happy to be in the studio this morning. It makes a nice change, doesn't it? Because, as you said, millions of people have been told to stay at home. There's been thousands now left without power and lots of disruption to travel too. We can start with the power. Thousands of properties across the UK and Ireland have been left without power. That includes more than 33,000 buildings in Wales and over 12,000 in the southwest of England. There's disruption to travel as well, with departure boards for airports in Bristol, Cardiff, Cork and Dublin showing a number of cancelled and delayed flights this morning. Meanwhile, National Rail has also warned that the storm is expected to bring significant disruptions, advising that rail travellers should check their journeys in full, as services at the end of the day may be cancelled. And some fun events have also been cancelled as well. Christmas events across the country cancelled because of the weather conditions. That includes Winter Wonderland in Hyde Park in London, Christmas at Kew Gardens as well, and Christmas markets both in Plymouth and in Bournemouth.
OK, Shaman, thanks for that. Kirsty, how does the Met Office decide a storm is worthy of that red weather alert? And they're not very common, are they?
No, I mean, red weather warnings are issued maybe once or twice a year, and it's only when they are very confident that they're going to be very impactful and definitely going to happen, because there's a matrix system behind the weather warnings. We've got this mix of yellow, amber and red, and that's because it depends on how impactful the weather's going to be, and that takes into consideration if it's going to affect a big city or not, and then also how likely the weather event is going to happen, because as we know, weather is a little bit of probability is always at play there, and so the red means it's definitely going to happen and it's definitely going to be impactful, which is why it's rarely issued, and it does mean there's a danger to life with this weather event. We haven't had a red, strong wind weather warning since Storm Eunice, and that was back in February 22, which is when we saw 122 mile per hour gusts in the Needles and the Isle of Wight. So far, we've seen 92 miles per hour this morning, but we've still got another few hours of these very strong and potentially damaging winds to come.
OK, thank you, Kirsty. Shaman too, thank you for keeping us up to date on the latest from Storm Darragh. South Korea's President Yoon has apologised for plunging the country into political turmoil by imposing martial law. Earlier this week, the country's parliament is due to vote later this morning on whether to remove him from office. Our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch has the latest.
Good morning to you. Well, there's no guarantee that they will vote to impeach the president. A lot of speculation about what the numbers might be, whether the ruling party is willing to defect and go against him. We just simply don't know. What's been very striking this morning is we have heard from the president. Finally, he declared martial law late on Tuesday night, and it has taken him until now to address the nation. And in that address, he decided to apologise for it and for any inconvenience caused. But he also made clear he was not going to be stepping down, and there was no real shift in his stance. Take a listen.
이번 비상계엄 선포는 국정 최종 책임자인 대통령으로서의 절박함에서 비롯되었습니다. 하지만 그 과정에서 국민들께 불안과 불편을 끼쳐드렸습니다. 매우 송구스럽게 생각하며 많이 놀라셨을 국민 여러분께 진심으로 사과드립니다. 저는 이번 계엄 선포와 관련하여 법적, 정치적 책임 문제를 회피하지
The opposition party have said that they are deeply disappointed by those remarks. They say they only really add to people's sense of anguish around the president's actions. Now, in about 2 hours, we will see this impeachment vote get underway. There are protests outside the National Assembly currently taking place. The vote will happen in the building behind me. They will need the opposition a 2/3 majority in order to impeach the president. Now, we have heard from the head of the ruling party that he feels that the president should step aside, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the party will vote for impeachment. There is concern that that will be very politically toxic for them. They want to hold on, even though they are clutching very tightly onto this power. They want to ensure their kind of political survival, if you like. So I don't think we can necessarily assume that this impeachment will go ahead. And if it doesn't, expect large protests here. We're expecting perhaps tens of thousands of people to take to the streets, some of those already gathering this afternoon. There is strong feeling here, and many want to see the president punished.
OK, let's take you through some other stories making news this Saturday morning. And the FBI has offered a $50,000 reward to help find the gunman who killed a health insurance boss in New York. Brian Thompson was shot outside a hotel in Manhattan on Wednesday. Police have found a backpack they believe belonged to the suspect, who has been on the run ever since. Detectives say they believe the person responsible has now fled the city. The New York Police Department has also offered a $10,000 reward for any information which leads to an arrest. Syrian rebel forces claim they're closing in on the city of Homs. The militants have already captured 2 major cities. If they do take Homs, they'll then set their sights on Damascus. That's President Assad's seat of power. A top Romanian court has annulled the first round of the country's presidential election. It comes after allegations that Russia used platforms such as TikTok and Telegram to promote the far-right candidate Carlin Georgescu. OK, let's take a look at a live shot of Notre Dame Cathedral, which will reopen today. It's after 5 years after the famous French landmark was devastated by a fire. It's an iconic building, isn't it? It went up in flames in April 2019. And these are the pictures of the roof and the spire that were completely engulfed. At the time, it was described by the Vatican as a sad day for the symbol of Christianity around the world. And it remains unclear what caused the fire, with authorities saying perhaps an electrical fault or a burning cigarette may have been responsible. Well, President Macron declared the 12th century relic would be restored in just 5 years. It has been. The £500 million refurbishment was funded by global donations and has involved 2,000 workers carrying out deep cleaning, technical upgrades and structural improvements. Now, a series of events will celebrate the reopening, with today's gathering to be one of the first. And among those attending today's ceremony is none other than Donald Trump in what will be his first overseas trip since winning the US presidential election last month. Our US correspondent Mark Stone takes a look at what we can expect from the president-elect's return to the world stage.
Well, Donald Trump will arrive in France a little later on today, his first foreign trip since he won the election back in November. Indeed, his first trip out of the United States since 2023. He's been invited to Paris by Emmanuel Macron, the French president, to attend the ceremony of the reopening of Notre Dame after it was destroyed by fire back in 2019. And so ostensibly, on the face of it, that is the reason for the trip. But I think it's about much, much more than that. Emmanuel Macron has invited him to France because he sees a diplomatic opportunity, an opportunity to sit down with the president-elect to discuss many, many issues, from the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, tariffs, which Trump has said suggested he might put on goods coming into the United States. So there's an awful lot for the two of them to discuss, and it could well go wider than that as well, because Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, he is due in Paris as well. Trump, of course, has said that he would bring peace to Ukraine in just a day. He's not said how he would do that, and so potentially a meeting between those two leaders and maybe some detail on what peace in Ukraine might look like. There will also be a meeting, we understand, between Donald Trump and Prince William. Prince William is representing the UK in France at the ceremony. Sir Keir Starmer not going because it is the invitations went out to heads of state too. So a big moment, a big symbolic moment for the reopening of the cathedral, of course, but a big diplomatic moment as well as Donald Trump returns to the world stage.
And we'll have live coverage of Notre Dame's grand reopening from 5:30 this evening. The Chancellor has warned that raising defence spending will mean having to make cuts elsewhere. In an interview with the Daily Mail, Rachel Reeves also said she would launch the biggest audit of government spending in almost 2 decades. Let's bring in our political correspondent, Amanda Acas. Amanda, you've got the details for viewers. What's Rachel Reeves been saying on defence? Morning.
Good morning. Yes, this really is a bit of a shot across the bows for the defence establishment from the Chancellor. She's done an interview with the Mail, which is presented in pretty positive terms, in which she's talking about that target that the government have said they want to reach of spending 2.5% of GDP on defence, which would equate to an extra £20 billion a year by 2030. She's warning in this interview that doing so would lead to cuts in other areas of the government, and also hasn't committed to when the government is going to do this by either, just saying that there is a review underway which is due to set out a path to that next year. She's also made pretty critical comments about defence procurement, describing it as a bit of a disaster zone, all of which I think might set alarm bells ringing, certainly for those who believe that defence spending should be the country's #1 priority given the volatile global situation at the moment. But I think the overall interview, the message is very much one of caution with the public finances. Defence wasn't one of the Prime Minister's 6 priorities, the milestones that were announced last week. Yes, the government say it's still one of their foundations, but I think many believe that actually, given that the government haven't put a target on defence spending within that announcement last week, is it therefore one of the departments which might be in line not to have the funding that it wants? Rachel Reeves talks about needing to be ruthlessly prioritising and targeted in spending as part of a review that's going on next year, which will see budgets going through line by line. So I think the writing does seem to be a little bit on the wall for this, which will certainly concern many in the defence establishment.
Amanda, thank you. Still to come on The Breakfast Show. Thousands are left without power. Storm Darragh batters the UK. We'll bring you the very latest, of course, plus The royal family step out in force to support the Princess of Wales and her annual carol concert.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters.
We love Trump!
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
It's a Premier League double derby weekend on USA. First, on Saturday, Liverpool look to strengthen their title run against Everton in the Merseyside derby. Then Sunday, Chelsea aim to stay in the hunt when they face Tottenham in a London derby.
And this meeting might shift the dial in that derby.
The Premier League double derby weekend on USA.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
The Princess of Wales hosted her annual carol concert at Westminster Abbey last night. Kate was supported by Prince William and her children in what was arguably her most poignant Christmas service to date. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills reports.
It's an event that's become a symbol of everything that matters to her. The princess already at Westminster Abbey to meet the rest of the family, guiding Charlotte, Louis and George towards the kindness tree to add their own messages of thanks to those who've supported them this year. She didn't really need to explain to us why she'd chosen the themes of love and empathy. William has already described how brutal this year has been. Meeting some of the performers, she admitted it hasn't been the year she expected.
I didn't know this year was going to be the year that I've just had.
The unplanned.
The unplanned, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think lots of people this year have had such challenging times.
But she wanted this to be a celebration, the princess explaining how a ballet performance had become a family secret.
Louis knew about the dancers, I was talking about it over tea. Ballet dancers, exactly. And he said, what's the secret? I said, Louis, can you keep a secret? Because I wanted to be a surprise for Charlotte.
Sir Chris Hoy, who recently announced his own cancer diagnosis, was among the 1,600 in the congregation, along with D-Day veterans and those who've done so much to help others. Like Liv Bowditch, who writes anonymous letters to cancer patients, including the princess.
I wrote to her to say, I really hope you're all right, and
I understand this is a really difficult process for you, and I really hope that in a world that can be so loud, you get some quiet and just spend time with your family and really process this in the way that you need.
Ellie Chalice won gold in swimming at the Paris Paralympics and was here to say thanks to her own family.
I've had a lot of support from my dad and my two sisters, and I couldn't have done any of this without them. Supporting me through surgeries and taking me to training and turning up to my competitions to support me. So to be here tonight and to see all these people all coming here for one big reason, I think is really special.
Her public engagements may have been rare this year, but we have heard a lot from the Princess about what really matters to her and what her priorities are in a year where she has been more open and spoken more personally than she ever has before. These pictures were released from inside. We'll have to wait to see the rest on TV on Christmas Eve. We don't know what next year is going to look like for the Princess and her public engagements. This Christmas, one for them to reflect on a year where family has meant the world. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Westminster Abbey.
Oh, they're a family ready for Christmas, I'd say, Jackie.
Yeah, well, it looked very, very Christmassy and lovely and candly and sparkly. Are you Christmasified yet?
Yes, last night on the Ring alarm, on our alarm, we had a chap delivering a Christmas tree. And I was upstairs getting my daughter to bed. To our house.
You ordered it.
I did, yes. And I thought, that's it, I'm ready to jump in.
Yeah, I decorated my tree last night. And all the trees are up at Sky, which look amazing. So, yeah, maybe. Maybe can start listening to Michael Bublé.
Oh, I need a couple of mince pies before I get into that and a bit of mulled wine.
We'll sort it later.
Thank you.
So Storm Darragh today is going to be interesting with the sport, and even if things aren't cancelled, I think it's going to be interesting what happens in those football matches. So the early kick-off
I think you're right.
On Merseyside, you know. How does that affect both teams? Who deals with the conditions better? How bad will the conditions be? All of those things will come into question. And Liverpool today looking to extend their lead at the top. There is a weather warning in place for fans. And Arne Slot said in his press conference, you know, we're going to have to adapt to the conditions. You know, let's see when we get there, but we will have to adapt in some way. Also in the sport, Connor Roberts scored a great goal for Burnley last night. It wasn't enough for them to return to the top of the championship, but we will round up the action. The most successful driver-team partnership in F1 history comes to an end this weekend. We'll hear from Lewis Hamilton as he lines up for his final race with Mercedes. And England's cricketers have a commanding lead over New Zealand going into day 3 of the second test as Gus Atkinson claims a memorable hat-trick.
This conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
A red danger to life weather warning is in place for parts of Wales and southwest England as Storm Darragh makes landfall. Now, winds of up to 90 miles per hour, they've already been recorded, with the Met Office warning of flying debris and falling trees. They're predicting it could be the worst storm the UK has faced in more than 2 years. Millions of people have been told to stay indoors and not to travel. Well, the red warning covers parts of Wales and the south west of England, and it will be in place until 11 o'clock this morning. A separate amber warning is in place, stretching from southern Scotland all the way down to Cornwall, and a yellow warning is in place for virtually all other areas. Meteorologist at the Met Office, that's Claire Nazir. She joins us now. Great to see you, as always, Claire. So this red weather warning, it's rare, but people should listen to it.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a challenging night for thousands of people with power cuts and flying debris and very high waves. It warns of a widespread danger to life because of impacts associated with, in this case, wind. Already we've seen winds in excess of 90 miles an hour. That's storm force winds. The advice is just stay indoors, and the winds will peak through this morning. But if we look at the broader picture, most parts of the UK are going to be impacted by this storm through the next 24 hours. So we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, and Claire, there's an amber weather warning, isn't it, in place for western parts of England and Wales. What does that mean, a yellow weather warning?
So we use the traffic light system to warn at the level of impact there will be for populated people and areas. So it goes up in severity. However, a yellow warning still warns that there could be flying debris around, roads could be closed, there will be disruption to travel, with bridges closed as well, ferries cancelled. So we need to take heed of every level of weather warning. This storm is powerful. Storm Darragh is a beast, to be honest, and it's tracking across the central swathe of the country, and it's a big one as well. So the winds extend northward, southwest and east. So gales for most of the country, if not severe gales, through the rest of today. Add on some heavy rain, and there's heavy rain around at the moment. There are many rain warnings in force, including an amber one for southern parts of Wales. There's likely to be more flooding, and certainly it's dangerous to drive with the combination of wind and rain. And it's worth noting there's still snow falling across the Highlands and Grampians, with the risk of blizzards and some communities cut off with drifting as well. So lots to contend with out there. The advice, just stay put until this storm passes later tomorrow.
Absolutely. And Claire, just before you go, we are expecting more storms like this over the coming months and years. What's the science behind why we're seeing so many?
Well, every year there is a natural variability to whether we get many storms or few. Last year was quite prolific. We had many named storms the year before, not so much so. And in the last 18 months, we've seen some very wet weather. We've been stuck in a weather pattern where the jet stream has been over us, and the jet stream is the phenomena which actually spawns these storms across the Atlantic. So we've been very unlucky. However, with every degree of warming in the atmosphere, and our atmosphere is warming, it can hold about another 7% of moisture, and that manifests in rainfall and water. So with these storms, the intensity of the rain can increase. So we are likely to see more of storms of this level into the future, yeah.
All right, Claire, thank you so much. Great to see you as always. We'll leave it there for now. We're going to go to some live pictures now. This is Cornwall, and as the sun rises over those cliffs there, it's looking pretty powerful. Let's speak to paramedic Aaron Bushell, who joins us from Devon Air Ambulance. Just give us a sense what it's like being on shift from the early hours from this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. It was certainly quite nerve-wracking coming into work this morning, obviously with the high winds and the rain. I live a good 30 minutes away from where I work, so I had to take a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra caution when I was coming into work this morning. So but we're all ready to go here at Devon Air Ambulance and ready to respond if people need us this morning.
Often during storms like this, you might see people trying to brave the weather, not really taking on those weather alerts. There is a red weather warning in place, a yellow and amber for the rest of the country. Have you encountered anyone out and about in the early hours around Devon that should really just stay home?
Yeah, I think it's kind of across the UK, but research has shown that the British people aren't really prepared and adequately preparing themselves for these journeys in the dark and cold winter months. So we are going to a lot of patients who, potentially if they had taken a little bit more time to prepare themselves, either with their driving kind of style and conditions, but also preparing themselves for the journey as well, would have made a massive difference. So that's kind of why we've got a bit of a campaign going on at the minute for this winter driving, to see if we can kind of raise awareness and get people prepared as best they can for these journeys if they have to do them. So,
and what's that message, Aaron? What are you telling people locally?
So the whole focus of this campaign is to be prepared. So the areas in which the research is showing that people aren't preparing themselves is through not feeling confident. So not feeling confident, particularly around giving their location if they're involved in an incident, or a car breakdown or something along those lines. But also not preparing themselves and the vehicle that they're driving for these journeys ahead. So not checking the usual car maintenance, the tyres, the tyre tread depth, etc., and letting people know that they're going on these journeys, and checking the routes as well to see whether there's any closed roads from like today, that the high winds where the trees have fallen on their usual driving routes. So a lot of it is around preparing themselves for these journeys and only going out, obviously, if it's essential to do so. So one of the ways in which people can do that is by using an app which we all commonly use called What 3 Words.
Okay.
What 3 Words is a global app, so it's available across the UK, but also globally as well. And it's essentially a mapping system where each 3 metre by 3 metre square produces 3 unique words, which when they're involved in incidences or when they've broken down and they need assistance on things like motorways or country lanes, they can use this app to provide a really, really pinpoint location as to where they are. And that kind of not only helps the individuals feel slightly more confident that they'd be able to get help if they were on these journeys, but also for the emergency services side of things, it also gives us some confidence that we'd be able to respond to them as quickly as we possibly can.
Brilliant message. Aaron, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's not often that you take a look in the car, Jackie, make sure there's a blanket, make sure you've got extra snacks. I just don't do it, and it's worth, reinforcing during this stormy weather to do that sort of thing.
I didn't do any of that this morning.
You're not alone.
Took my chances and just set off. At least for the Liverpool fans today, going to the Merseyside derby, at least they don't have to go far, probably, because those 2 grounds could barely be closer. So at least if you're travelling, in theory, you don't have to go that far if you're on Merseyside for that match.
What do you think the chances are in this wind, in this rain? You've spoken about how the weather can really put them on an even playing field.
Yeah, I think in all sports, actually, weather can really have a big impact on the result of the match because, you go in there with a certain expectation and a plan, and sometimes that plan just doesn't work because the conditions are so bad. I mean, particularly on something like a tennis court, you see it at Wimbledon all the time. If it's a windy day, it can really play havoc with the outcome of the match. And I guess today it's going to be wind and rain, which is, I suppose, footballers are used to it. But when it's extreme, they're not used to it. So, goodness knows what's going to happen. We're keeping an eye out on the sports meetings because the race meetings at Sandown, Aintree, Chepstow and Wetherby, there will be some inspections on those race courses this morning. Plymouth Argyle matches against Oxford has already been postponed down the southwest of the country, and obviously Wales matches all off, including all rugby matches, all football matches postponed, and people then can use their tickets if you bought a ticket for those matches when they rearrange. But already the wind and rain playing a little bit of havoc.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Pep Guardiola has dominated English football since his arrival, winning 6 out of 8 titles. I went to pick his brains on his own journey and how he sees football development in this country.
Starting in my little town, when I was born, like all, the child in the neighborhoods, like in that time was no traffic lights in my little town, no cars, and all the time in the street. And after Academy Barcelona came, arrived with 13 years old. So all my life was there. And everything the Academy of Barcelona gave me, absolutely everything. Aware for the game, aware from how you had to behave, in a group of people, respect the managers and the institution, and everything. The club is more important than you. Accept that you are not good enough, you don't have to play, the effort, accept the defeats. Many, many details the sport teach you was there.
How important, Pep, was mentors in your life?
Mentors, Johan Cruyff was basically, when it's a little bit more mature. In that 30, you had a boy, away from a home, live in a residence, and the manager was a father figure in that moment. And you are lucky to find, the right ones.
You've been to Germany, obviously, Spain, Barcelona, England, Man City. If you're looking at the players now that have come through the teams that you've managed, why are those players so good, Pep? Is it just natural? Is Phil Foden just natural?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Natural skills is not enough.
Is it more difficult now to bring young players through?
It depends on the quality they have. It's difficult. It's a good question. It's difficult because always had the feeling the young players that we loan or we sell or didn't get the minutes, like Cole Palmer, for example. Yeah. If I would have give them, but not just catch the cold that explode, like in terms like it's unbelievable, and he deserves all this success and this season in Chelsea. It's not happen. If I would have give them the minutes that maybe deserve it, surrounded for David Silva, Vincent Kompany, all the big players there, put it there. They will have played good, absolutely. I know that. But in the moments, in that level, you know that you have to win for all the titles. You don't have too much time to, okay, let's see. Has to be, Phil Foden arrive, you see something like the impact has to be
straight away. Yeah.
Otherwise,
that's brought the level up. It's competition, Pep.
Yeah, right. It's a jungle. I see now national team from England. So imagine the time like a Lampard or Gerrard or Scholes and Ferdinand and Terry, Wayne Rooney, all these players. They were bad. And look now.
I know.
Phil and Saka and Hurricanes and all the players. And it will come. In 10 years' time, we'll see English national team and say, oh my God, what a player this one. It's natural selection.
My next stop took me to Spain to see a manager who's won league titles in Europe's top 5 divisions. Not to mention 5 Champions Leagues. It takes a brave boss to play the kids at the very best clubs. But what drives Carlo Ancelotti's philosophy when it comes to picking young players?
I started playing football and to have a passion for football when I was really young, 7, 8 years old. And then slowly, I grew up, and when I first started to think about to be a professional is when, at 15, I left my family and I went to Parma to play in the academy of Parma and to study in Parma. I lived for 4 years in Catholic college. Really tough, really strong. Who I am now is because was the experience that I had in that period. My father was my role model. I think the sport helped me and teach me a lot to respect the people.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Still to come on The Breakfast Show. We'll be discussing the stories making news today with journalists Shona Craven and Christian Calgie.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters.
We love Trump!
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
It's a Premier League double derby weekend on USA. First, on Saturday, Liverpool look to strengthen their title run against Everton in the Merseyside derby. Then Sunday, Chelsea aim to stay in the hunt when they face Tottenham in a London derby.
And this meeting might shift the dial in that derby.
The Premier League double derby weekend on USA.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. Let's begin our news review. I'm joined in the studio by community editor and columnist at The National, Shona Craven, and senior political correspondent at the Daily Express, Christian Calgie. Great to see you again. So let's dig in to The Guardian, Shona. Rape trials collapse due to record court delays.
Yeah, this is a very depressing story on multiple levels, explaining that the number of rape victims pulling out of prosecutions before trial has more than doubled in 5 years amid record delays in the court system in England and Wales. And then another part, which is always the most frustrating type of thing, that measures that have been designed to make justice more bearable for those in rape cases is actually resulting in even longer delays to those cases and making convictions less likely. So you've got this terrible double-edged thing where women are being, or I should say, obviously victims of either sex, are allowed to record their evidence, pre-record that so they don't have to face court. But then logistically bringing in witnesses in person has to be prioritised because of the logistics of doing that. And so it then means that the case is one of the ones that gets bumped back. We've obviously heard a lot about prison overcrowding, and we know a lot of that's due to prisoners on remand. So it's just this huge clog in the system that has been coming down the track for a long time. And of course, anyone reading this who is thinking about whether they want to go to police to pursue a case, knowing that, you know, conviction rates are already low, it will be very demoralising. And actually, in the body of the story, there's really quite a disturbing reference to the fact that police lost contact with a victim who had been waiting 2.5 to 3 years. And it says she didn't provide a withdrawal statement. No one knew where she'd gone, and they didn't have the resources to find her. So
That's
the case
the danger,
drifted
isn't
off.
it?
And you think, oh gosh, I hope she's okay. You know, having gone through that, and then the police can't contact her. Yes, of course, it's not going to be the top priority to use resources to find her, but things like that, you think the huge impact of all of this on someone, and then for nothing, and essentially, potentially the perpetrator in that case, or alleged perpetrator, who knows what that perpetrator might have been able to do because they've not been convicted. So yeah, pretty grim stuff, especially the fact that, you know, something that should have been a positive has had perhaps foreseeable negative impacts on access to justice.
Yeah, just picking up on what you say, that leaves the potential for any alleged victim to simply just walk away, wash their hands with it, and that's the biggest injustice there.
Yeah, and I mean, for them personally, that might be the best thing to do, to move on with their life and not obviously be too worried about, well, you know, we need justice and this person needs to be imprisoned, etc. There's that balance between how do I represent my own interests and is this person a danger to society, and so I have to do my bit and go through
And
this.
of course, I think for a lot of victims, sort of not just the trauma of reliving it all in court, but the length of the process, you know, that may not even result in a conviction is such a major sort of put-off for trying to seek justice in the first place. It's
absolutely
not the right way.
Christian, can you talk me through your paper, The Express? Kemi Badenoch, she's talking about naive church leaders. Give us the details.
So she's given a speech to a right-wing think tank in the United States. She's over there meeting sort of Republican Party politicians, and she sort of fleshed out her view of why the state is broken as she sees it, and she talked about how malign actors on the left have, in her words, hacked the state for their own benefit. She cited the example of the asylum seeker Azidi, we remember, was it early this year or last year, who sort of came to Britain, converted to Christianity as a means to staying in the country, and then committed a number of sexual assaults and a chemical attack on a mother and her children in London. And she was saying that essentially naive priests are allowing themselves to be duped by malign actors such as illegal migrants to stay in the country. And she also said that the state needs to do fewer things better, and she praised Elon Musk's plans over in America and the Libertarian president of Argentina, Javier Milei. I just thought it was very interesting because there's a problem for Kemi, which is that she's really struggling with the cut-through. I think we all knew that would be the case when a party's so reduced, like the Conservatives have been, and let's be honest, Reform are a more exciting story most days. But I thought the speech had a lot of merit. She's still not coming out with any policies, but I think to sort of see her worldview in black and white as it is, I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, a bit unclear, sorry, what she would actually have these church leaders do. Are they supposed to be effectively acting as Home Office interrogators and not accept? I mean, how can you measure whether someone's faith is genuine or not? We don't know that this particular sex attacker and chemical attacker maybe was a Christian. I mean, it's certainly no barrier to committing crimes identifying as a Christian. So I think she's barking up slightly the wrong tree by blaming the people who are converting people. I mean, what does that even mean?
Yeah, she definitely says she loves being called a culture warrior, doesn't she, Kemi?
Of course she does.
Talk me through, Shona, teachers now being urged to spot signs of incel culture. How would that work?
Well, indeed, with some difficulty. I'm sure teachers will be groaning at the idea that now they also are supposed to be doing a role of, you know, the police. We saw on some of the other front pages about the limited funding for MI5 to both tackle sort of domestic terrorists and foreign threats. And now we're sort of suggesting that teachers have that responsibility, not just to sort of police sexist or misogynistic language and behaviour in the classroom, but to be thinking about whether these young men might grow up to commit serious crimes and, you know, potentially forms of sort of terroristic crimes, perhaps influenced by the likes of the notorious Andrew Tate. I think it's probably very difficult for teachers to distinguish between sort of a showing off or even a sort of sarcastic or ironic adoption of certain phrases and things. And the whole notion of an incel, this involuntary celibate, well, can you have a 15-year-old incel? I mean, technically, they're not allowed to be having sex with anyone at that age. So I think that the difference between a young boy who's maybe saying some provocative things, for which he should be disciplined accordingly at school, there's quite a leap, perhaps, between that and what the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, is warning about. You know, I don't think all the boys who are coming out with some of this language are on track to become rapists, but at the same time, you know, just that classroom environment would be very uncomfortable for both teachers and fellow pupils, both boys and girls. So it's a very difficult thing, I think, to draw that line. When do you refer a young boy to prevent, rather than just to the head teacher?
OK, we're going to end on two uplifting stories. The front page of the Express showing Kate's message of Christmas hope.
Yes.
And that was her annual Christmas carol service there. And then I'm afraid we are running out of time. And I want to end on a very special story, which is some grannies knitting blankets for some injured rhinos there. We're going to leave that up on that back screen for you, and we will join you after a short break.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Good morning, everyone. It's 8 o'clock. On today's show, a danger to life storm brings red weather warnings to parts of the UK, with an emergency alert sent to millions at risk, telling them to to stay indoors.
Yes, Storm Darragh has made landfall, leaving thousands without power, shutting major travel routes and cancelling flights and trains.
Plus, in sport, leaders Liverpool will hope to get the bragging rights over their city rivals Everton when they meet in the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park later.
That's going to be a good one. It's Saturday, the 7th of December. Storm Darragh hits the UK with 90-mile-per-hour winds and waves of up to 7 metres. We'll be live in Wales this morning, where bridges have been closed, flights cancelled and trains delayed, with people told to stay at home and not travel. Also ahead, South Korea's president apologises for plunging the country into political turmoil. This hour, Parliament will vote on whether to impeach him. The FBI offers a $50,000 reward to help find a gunman who killed a health insurance boss in New York City. And rising from the ashes, Notre Dame Cathedral reopens 5 years after being destroyed by fire.
Also ahead, Pep Guardiola has attempted to play down his recent war of words with Jose Mourinho. We'll explain what has happened between the pair.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on The Breakfast Show. Our top story this morning, it's the weather. A red danger to life weather warning is in place for parts of Wales and the southwest of England. This is as Storm Darragh makes landfall. Winds of up to 90 miles per hour have already been recorded, with the Met Office warning of flying debris and falling trees in what they predict could be the worst storm the UK has faced in more than 2 years. Now, millions of people have been told to stay indoors and not to travel. Well, the red warning, that covers parts of Wales and the southwest of England, and it will be in place until around 11 o'clock this morning. Meanwhile, a separate amber warning is in place, stretching from southern Scotland all the way down to Cornwall, and a yellow warning is in place for virtually all other areas. It's not looking good. Late last night, the UK government sent this warning to millions of people at risk from the storm, telling them the conditions will be too unsafe to drive and warning of significant disruption. It warns of power outages and urges people to prepare themselves with torches and other essential items. So let's get the situation, shall we, in South Wales. Our correspondent Lisa Dowd is there. Lisa, give us a sense of what's happening. We know that a major bridge has been closed.
Yes, we are in Penarth. We are a few miles or so away from Cardiff. This is the Severn Estuary beside me, quite a swell here where it meets the Bristol Channel. Now, many of us here received those quite alarming text messages from the UK government last night, warning that there was a threat to life and that people shouldn't go out and travel around up until 11 o'clock. Well, actually, I've just seen some swimmers actually in here in the waters for 5 minutes or so. So some people clearly not heeding the warnings to stay away from the sea and from cliff areas because the gusts in West Wales have actually reached over 90 miles an hour. Now, we've got bridges closed here in South Wales where it links to the southwest of England. Those bridges are the Severn Bridge and the Prince of Wales Bridge. Cardiff Airport, the runway is closed until 11 o'clock, so that's going to disrupt things for people travelling to Lapland, so their Christmas plans will be disrupted. Football matches and rugby matches here in Wales are all cancelled as well. We're seeing some problems on the roads due to fallen trees. The A470 is closed both ways near Merthyr. Delays are expected there, and thousands of people are without power here in Wales due to these winds, and also in England, in the southwest and in the Midlands as well. And we also have this amber alert for rain stretching down the west coast of the UK. We could see up to 900 millimetres of rain in one go over 3 to 6 hours today, which will be concerning for this part of South Wales, which was so badly hit a few weeks ago by the flooding. Rain again falling on already sodden ground will be a concern for many.
OK, Lisa, for now, thank you so much. Well, I'm joined in the studio by Sky meteorologist Kirsty McGabe and our correspondent Shaman Freeman-Powell. We are the lucky ones. We're in a studio and it's warm. Shaman, just give us a sense of the rest of the UK and how it's looking for people.
Well, it is causing serious issues, especially with travel and also power outages across the country. As it stands, there are thousands of properties across the UK which are currently left without power. And it's also in Ireland as well. Left without power includes more than 36,000 buildings in Wales and over 16,000 buildings in the southwest of England. There's also disruption to air travel too, with departure boards for airports in Bristol, Cardiff, Cork and Dublin, all showing a number of cancelled and delayed flights this morning. National Rail have also warned that the storm is expected to bring significant disruption to some of their lines, and already in Wales, all train services west of Cardiff have been suspended until further notice, and that's due to a tree falling on the lines. And also some Christmas events have also been cancelled too in the UK. This includes Winter Wonderland in Hyde Park in London, Christmas at Kew Gardens, Christmas markets in Plymouth and Bournemouth too. As you said, here in London, we aren't in that red weather warning zone, but you can feel the really strong winds, especially in wind tunnels in and around this building anyway.
Yeah, I got a text from home saying the kids are at the window, fascinated by the wind bashing against the windows, the rain. So it's looking pretty rough across all of the country. This is what it looks like here. Oh, we saw those pictures, they're gone, never mind. Kirsty, give me a sense about the red weather warning.
Absolutely.
How does the Met Office decide that a storm, these are some pictures of Wales in the background there, how does it decide that, yeah, this storm is a threat to life?
So I think most people are aware that there's a traffic light warning system. So it goes yellow, amber, red. Yellow still means, you know, be aware, pay attention because there is severe weather around. Amber, a little bit more severe, and then red is the highest level of warning. And that really means there is a danger to life. And the decisions are made on a sort of matrix system, so it takes into account not just the wind speeds forecast or the rainfall amounts, which obviously let you know how severe it is, but also how impactful it's going to be. So, for example, we've got an amber out for parts of South Wales because they've had a lot of rain recently with Storm Darragh, so they have another amber today because they've got more rain to come. Other parts of the country will also see the wet and windy weather, but it's the areas in amber and red are where it's going to be most impactful. And we only issue red warnings maybe 1 or 2 a year at most. So it certainly is something to really bear in mind. And not just for travel today, but I know most of us were probably still putting up Christmas decorations. Best to do those indoors today and not get any of the outside ones up, or otherwise they'll be halfway down the road. So it is not the best weekend for most of us, but especially so in western areas with really severe weather. You know, Storm Darragh is a beast and it's affecting most of us through much of the weekend.
OK, Kirsty, for now, thank you so much. Shaman, also, thank you for keeping our viewers up to date with the very latest on Storm Darragh. Well, let's get some reaction to Storm Darragh. From the government now, Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Jonathan Reynolds, joins us now. Great to have you with us, Mr Reynolds. We're talking about Storm Darragh here in the studio. What's your message to people up and down the country that don't feel that they're prepared enough for big storms like this?
Well, good morning. Yes, obviously a challenging situation. So about 3 million homes will have had the emergency alert system to their mobile phone. Just encourage anyone who's had that to follow the advice. So make sure you have your phone charged, you have a backup charger if you need it, make sure you have a torch. If you're a person who has specialist medical equipment at home, there's real specific provisions you need in place for that. So far, we've got about 22,000 homes, mainly in Wales, without power. National Grid is responding to that and will be on standby for any further challenges throughout the rest of the day. But where you can, stay inside, don't put yourself at risk, and just follow the advice at all times.
OK, Mr Reynolds, give us a sense of where you are today and what you'd like to talk about.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm at the Sunflower Bakery here in Islington on the Caledonian Road to celebrate Small Business Saturday. So this is a wonderful chance to recognise not just the incredible economic contribution small businesses make to the UK, but the social contribution they make to communities. And this wonderful bakery here, I don't know whether you can see the wonderful things on display behind me, some pan of chocolates that look particularly good, is a great example of that. And as a government, we of course want to support businesses like this every way we can. So we've already had big changes to late payment, making sure businesses are paid on time. We've got changes coming to business rates, where there'll be permanently lower business rates for retail, hospitality and leisure from 2025-26. Changes to how derelict property is treated on the high street. New powers for councils to bring that back into use. So a whole range of things. But at the heart of it, I want to announce today a new business growth service. So I want to take all the things that government does. Now, sometimes businesses just don't know where to look to find those and bring them into one place, as they do in the US with the Small Business Administration or Singapore with Enterprise Singapore. I want that so businesses know where they can access that support. But I also want something where, say you're a person with an idea, you don't know yet how to implement it, how to practically go about starting that business. You have one place you can go and look for finance, for advice, for expertise, and we celebrate that entrepreneurship as a country, have more great success stories like this, making the kind of contribution we see here today.
I have to say, Mr Reynolds, you're making us rather hungry with that backdrop there where you are. Don't you think that small business...
The smell is incredible here as well.
I bet it is. I just wonder, though, my question to you is, don't you think that Small Business Saturday could have been a chance to scrap that national insurance contribution rise for small business? Wouldn't that have been a big announcement today?
Oh, look, there were difficult things in the budget we had to do to fix those foundations. For smaller businesses, I would point you to the big change in employment allowance. So that was doubled in the budget and the threshold was taken off so everyone can qualify for it. So it actually means for smaller businesses, about 1 million businesses across the UK, they will pay the same or lower national insurance contributions as a result of the budget than they otherwise would have done. But look, I recognise when you've got the kind of inheritance we had as a government, there's been some difficult parts to that to reconcile the national finances to the previous government's commitments. But the agenda of this government, whether it is on industrial strategy, small business, trade, all of these changes to improve that environment, is about looking to the future with confidence, with building on the brilliant things we have and trying to get more of it. And I think the Business Growth Service is a great example of something that could make a difference up and down the UK.
How does the government plan to fill all of those empty shops that we see on our high street, that many viewers will be concerned about, that are closed up, that haven't been able to survive?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really big issue across the country. In a constituency like mine in Hyde and Stalybridge, we see a lot of this might be an old bank that's taken off the high street, but the premises are still there. Could be just a property that's been left in neglect. So the new powers that came into effect at the start of this month mean that councils for the first time can look at a property if it has been vacant for more than 12 months in any 24-month period and have an auction for a lease between 1 and 5 years to bring it back into use. So one thing I've really been frustrated by as a Member of Parliament in the last few years is cases where you've got a kind of premises like this and the owner, for whatever reason, has no interest in bringing it back into use. This is a really significant change, quite a radical change actually, giving powers to local authorities to do that. So for a whole new generation of entrepreneurs, there'll be properties available at a good cost to them in order to bring high streets back to life. And of course, what's so important about that is if you're a successful business like this one, you don't want a derelict property next door to you. That can really bring down the overall impression people have of an area. So there's real practical changes that started this month that will make a difference in that area.
Yeah, Rachel Reeves is in the Daily Mail today, writing in the Daily Mail, saying we can't boost defence spending without making cuts to other parts of government. Are you concerned that she might make cuts to your department, Mr Reynolds?
Well, look, we all understand the position the UK is in. I mean, the last decade and a half has seen a rate of growth in the UK economy lower than anyone would have wanted it to be, lower than we would really have expected in terms of the kind of post-war trend. And that puts real pressure on public services. And the message that we have been consistent with, which is frankly just the truth, is that you cannot have more spending in any area of public service unless the economy is performing more strongly. And that is why we're so committed to the kind of changes to the planning system, to industrial strategy, to the skills system, to the kind of changes I'm talking about in relation to small business today. We've got to attract more private capital to the UK. That's the simple truth of it. And all the things that people want to see have got to be based upon improving that business and economic environment.
And just before you go, Mr Reynolds, Donald Trump, President-elect, is in Paris. What are the prospects of a free trade deal between the UK and the US? Have you had much connection with the Trump administration, the incoming Trump administration?
Well, it's going to be a significant agenda for 2025. You've got to wait under the US system for those appointments to be ratified, and obviously there's an existing US administration in place. But look, there are loads of things I'd love to do more closely with the US on things like technology, services, trade. There are some areas, to be frank, which are much more difficult. But look, where there is an offer from any country to work more closely on trade with the UK, of course we'll have that conversation. What I'm always keen to stress is that's never just about one country and another. It's about, for the UK, what does it mean for our relationship to the EU? What does it mean to countries like China, to the trade deals we're trying to strike with India and the Gulf and South Korea and places like that? So you've got to consider it in the round. But if there's a country out there that we could do closer trade with, of course I'm interested in that.
OK, we'll leave it there. Jonathan Reynolds, great to have you on Sky News today.
Thank you. Thank you.
South Korea's President Yoon has apologised for plunging the country into political turmoil by imposing martial law. Earlier this week, the country's parliament is due to vote this morning on whether to remove him from office. Our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch is in the capital, Seoul, today. So we had that apology, Cordelia. What's the mood been like since?
Well, I think there's great frustration in the crowds gathered outside the National Assembly where I am and where the vote for impeachment is due to take place any minute now. People are frustrated. Opponents of the president want to see him punished. And certainly if you look at polls, it suggests that the majority of people want to see him impeached. We will have to wait and see within the next hour whether or not that will happen. But we have heard from some opposition members and from the ruling party already. Members of the president's PPP party allegedly spoke on the steps as they were going in to the assembly and said that they would not support impeachment. I think if that is the case, then we are going to see large protests. The opposition are absolutely determined for this motion to pass. I think they will be deeply angered if that doesn't happen. We did hear from the president today. It was earlier in the week, of course, that he declared martial law, an audacious move that caused a great deal of controversy, chaos and confusion. The army storming into the building where I am and going face to face with politicians. We've heard this week that the president reportedly issued orders to arrest some MPs, and we've heard criticism even from the head of his own party, who said it is time that he needs to step down. Now let's take a listen to what the president did eventually say today, days after the event, his attempt to issue some kind of apology. Take a listen.
This declaration of martial law was made out of desperation as the president, who is ultimately responsible for state affairs. However, in the process, I caused anxiety and inconvenience to the people. I am very sorry. I sincerely apologize to the people, who must have been very surprised. I will not avoid the issue of legal and political responsibility regarding this declaration of martial law. Citizens, there are talks that martial law will be declared again, but I tell you clearly, there will never be a second martial law.
So there you have it, an apology, well, certainly for any inconvenience caused, but no shift in stance from the president, just a guarantee, he says, that there won't be martial law imposed for a second time. Now, we're expecting the vote to take place in the National Assembly within the next hour. We await to see what the reaction will be like in the crowds, because currently there are thousands of people lining the streets on the way up to the Assembly, calling for the president not only to be impeached, but also imprisoned. This was a moment this week in South Korea that really shook people's sense of stability and security. They are a proud democracy and they believe the president threatened that status quo. It is striking that it took him so long to address the nation today, and certainly no big mea culpa.
Cordelia, thank you. Well, let's take a look at some other stories making news for you this morning. The FBI has offered a $50,000 reward to help find the gunman who killed a health insurance boss in New York. Brian Thompson was shot outside a hotel in Manhattan on Wednesday. Police found a backpack which they believe belonged to the suspect, who has since been on the run. Detectives say they believe the person responsible has now fled the city. The New York Police Department has also offered a $10,000 reward for any information which leads to the arrest. Syrian rebel forces claim they're closing in on the city of Homs. The militants have already captured 2 major cities, and if they do take Homs, they'll then set their sights on Damascus, President Assad's seat of power. The top Romanian court has annulled the first round of the country's presidential election. It comes after allegations that Russia used platforms like TikTok and Telegram to promote far-right candidate Carlin Georgescu. And the Princess of Wales has hosted her annual carol concert at Westminster Abbey in what was arguably her most poignant Christmas service to date. Kate was supported by her husband, Prince William, and her children and other members of the royal family. The Princess has been gradually returning to public duties after being treated for cancer, which was a theme that was clear throughout the service. Still to come on The Breakfast Show. Thousands are left without power as Storm Darragh batters the UK. We'll bring you the very latest. Plus, rising from the ashes, Notre Dame reopens with an array of politicians and world leaders in attendance.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters.
We love Trump!
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was the president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
It's a Premier League Double Derby weekend on USA. First, on Saturday, Liverpool look to strengthen their title run against Everton in the Merseyside derby. Then Sunday, Chelsea aim to stay in the hunt when they face Tottenham in a London derby.
And this meeting might shift the dial in that derby.
The Premier League Double Derby weekend on USA.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Notre Dame Cathedral will reopen today, 5 years after the famous French landmark was devastated by a fire. The iconic building, well, it went up in flames in April 2019. These are the latest pictures. They're actually live. And back then, the roof and spire completely, well, it was engulfed, wasn't it? At the time, it was described by the Vatican as a sad day for the symbol of Christianity around the world. And to this day, it remains unclear what caused the fire, with authorities saying perhaps an electrical fault or a burning cigarette may have been responsible. Well, President Macron declared the 12th century relic could be restored. In just 5 years, it has been achieved. The £500 million refurbishment was funded by global donations, and it's involved 2,000 workers carrying out deep cleaning, technical upgrades and structural improvements. Now, a series of events will celebrate the reopening, with today's gathering being the first. And among those attending today's ceremony is Donald Trump, in what will be his first overseas trip since winning the US presidential election last month. Our US correspondent Mark Stone takes a look now at what we can expect from the president-elect's return to the world stage.
Well, Donald Trump will arrive in France a little later on today, his first foreign trip since he won the election back in November. Indeed, his first trip out of the United States since 2023. He's been invited to Paris by Emmanuel Macron, the French president, to attend the ceremony of the reopening of Notre Dame after it was destroyed by fire back in 2019. And so ostensibly, on the face of it, that is the reason for the trip. But I think it's about much, much more than that. Emmanuel Macron has invited him to France because he sees a diplomatic opportunity, an opportunity to sit down with the president-elect to discuss many, many issues, from the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, tariffs, which Trump has said, suggested he might put on goods coming into the United States. So there's an awful lot for the two of them to discuss, and it could well go wider than that as well, because Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, he is due in Paris as well. Trump, of course, has said that he would bring peace to Ukraine in just a day. He's not said how he would do that, and so potentially a meeting between those two leaders and maybe some detail on what peace in Ukraine might look like. There will also be a meeting, we understand, between Donald Trump and Prince William. Prince William is representing the UK in France at the ceremony. Sir Keir Starmer not going because it is the invitations went out to heads of state too. So a big moment, a big symbolic moment for the reopening of the cathedral, of course, but a big diplomatic moment as well as Donald Trump returns to the world stage.
And of course, we'll have live coverage of Notre Dame's grand reopening from about 5:30 this evening. Do stay with us. Jack is here with all of the sport.
They've done a great job, haven't they? They've done such an amazing job. Because when that happened, I was thinking, that's so tragic. They'll never be able to restore this.
Well, it's those pictures, isn't it, of it up in flames that was so memorable back then. And then all of the donations that flooded in to make this restoration possible.
I was working that morning and thinking, that's horrific. And it's weird because it's just a building. It's not actual people, but it's just it's amazing how they've restored that. It's incredible. Great.
So, yeah, we'll have coverage of that from 5:30, as I said, which will feature President-elect Donald Trump and many others.
Interesting in more ways than one.
Definitely. So what I was going to say, Jackie, is this weather malarkey, it's causing a right bother for so many people.
Yes.
And how's it affecting the sport?
Well, not as much as you think, actually. Wales, it's a write-off. All football's been cancelled. All rugby matches have been cancelled in Wales. Particularly bad there. You know, good call. You know, safety comes first. Plymouth Argyle's match against Oxford has been cancelled. Actually, in the last hour, there were race meetings due to have inspections this morning. So Aintree, which is Merseyside, cancelled. Chepstow also cancelled, and some more inspections due. But it's going to be interesting. It's the Merseyside derby. It's the last one at Goodison Park today. You know, what is going to happen there? How much of an impact will the weather have? On the slots sort of admitted, we're going to have to adapt. And I think in these situations, the team that adapts best to the conditions, if they are that bad, will have a huge advantage, and it could have a good bearing on the outcome of the match. And it's an important match because Liverpool are looking to extend their lead at the top. There is a weather warning in place for fans, although I suppose the majority of fans, they're both coming from, you know, such close proximity. I mean, those two grounds, Goodison and Liverpool's ground at Anfield, they could not be closer. So at least the travel thing shouldn't be a huge issue for most of the fans. But also we're going to be talking F1 and going to warmer climates to Abu Dhabi. The most successful driver-team partnership in F1 history comes to an end this weekend. We'll hear from Lewis Hamilton as he lines up for his final race with Mercedes. Connor Roberts scored a great goal for Burnley last night. It wasn't enough, though, for them to return to the top of the Championship. We will round up the action from that match. And England's cricketers have a commanding lead over New Zealand going into day 3 of the second test as Gus Atkinson claims a memorable hat-trick.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work. Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
A red danger to life weather warning is in place for parts of Wales and southwest England. This is as Storm Darragh makes landfall. Winds of up to 90 miles per hour. Well, they've already been recorded. The Met Office are warning of flying debris, falling trees. They're predicting it will be, or could be, the worst storm the UK has faced in about 2 years. Millions of people have been told to stay indoors, do not travel. Well, the red warning, that's covering parts of Wales and the southwest of England, and it will be in place until 11 o'clock this morning. A separate amber warning, that's in place stretching from southern Scotland all the way down to Cornwall. And a yellow warning is in place for virtually all other areas. Earlier, we heard from the Met Office.
This storm is powerful. Storm Darragh is a beast, to be honest, and it's tracking across the central swathe of the country, and it's a big one as well. So the winds extend northward, southwest, and east. So gales for most of the country, if not severe gales, through the rest of today. Add on some heavy rain, and there's heavy rain around at the moment. There are many rain warnings in force, including an amber one for southern parts of Wales. There's likely to be more flooding, and certainly it's dangerous to drive with the combination of wind and rain.
Claire Nazir. Let's join our correspondent Charlotte Leeming, who joins us now from Bangor in North Wales. How's it going? How's the weather feeling at the moment?
Well, Leah, the power of this wind is something else. I don't think I've experienced wind this strong, as we've heard. Over 90 miles per hour in some areas here in Bangor, just next to the pier. It's getting a right battering this morning. That sort of weather where you struggle to stand up properly, and I think struggling to get out of the front door. It's so ferocious. Of course, people were warned last night. I've never seen it before in 20 years of broadcasting, where these alerts went off on our phones for a good hour, a few alerts for that hour, where there was this siren going off on phones, about 10 seconds, and then this warning on the screen, both in Welsh and English, saying to people, do not go out between 3 a.m. and 11 a.m. That is when Storm Darragh is really hitting these areas of Wales and, of course, the southwest of England as well. So we're seeing the consequences of that. We're seeing some power cuts affecting thousands of people's homes. We've got road closures, bridge closures. We know there's no rugby or football taking place in Wales today. It's just too risky. It's too dangerous. Here on the Victorian Pier here, it's had some battering over the years, I'm sure, and the Straits as well are looking pretty rough behind me. There's supposed to be a massive event here today with thousands of people filling this car park and the pier, a Christmas concert with fireworks. That was called off last night. There was no way that that was going to take place. It's feeling ferocious. It's feeling pretty windy, I can tell you, with gusts of over 90 miles per hour. It should pass over by 11 a.m. People will be wanting that to be over as quickly as possible.
Charlotte, do stay safe. Thanks so much for the update there from Bangor. Well, Jack is here with all the sport, and we've got Arne Slot over our shoulder there. That's a big game for Liverpool a bit later today.
Yes, it's huge, and it'll be interesting to see what the weather is going to be like. Last ever match between Liverpool and Everton at Goodison Park before they move to their lovely new stadium, which is planned for next season. So he sort of mentions the weather. I'm actually looking forward later to going live to Abu Dhabi, where the weather is just going to be so much nicer. one would hope to talk to Martin Blundell about what's been going on there, because last race of the season, the championship was wrapped up a while ago, but the constructors' title is up for grabs. But this week has been so fascinating that even if you weren't a fan of F1, you were thinking, these two drivers don't like each other. Talking
this is Max Verstappen, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. And the spat that has been going on this week with George Russell really bearing his soul. And I think it's all the pundits are thinking, oh, this has come just in the nick of time. This is actually amusing everybody, not least Lando Norris, who thought the whole thing was great to watch from a distance. Apparently it was the driver's dinner, and they kept the two well apart. So it'll be interesting to talk to him about that and Lewis Hamilton's last ride
with Mercedes.
For Mercedes.
Yeah. And he's been talking about how he's struggled with his emotions.
Actually.
Go on.
Let me tell you. We heard earlier that Aintree had been called off the race meeting today. They've called off the Merseyside Derby.
Are you kidding me?
They have just postponed it in the last few minutes due to the weather conditions.
Oh, my goodness. OK.
I did actually wonder when they called off Aintree in the last hour,
whether it would,
because it's obviously the same area, would affect Goodison. Yes, it has. They have called off that derby where it was going to be a big day for Liverpool. Well, we're going to have to wait a bit longer for Arne Slot's first Merseyside derby, because it is not.
How much of a headache is it to reschedule matches, big matches like this?
Well, I think it is a big headache for a club like Liverpool, who'll be involved in all competitions on all fronts for a long time. They've got a crowded fixture list as it is, but they'll have to. I mean, they've got to fulfil all their matches, so they will have to find time to fit that one in. And obviously, it means a lot to the fans as well. Everton last season won this fixture 2-0, so it was a great day for Everton fans against Liverpool last season. They're trying to do the double over Liverpool for the first time in 40 years, and they thought today might be their day. And of course for Liverpool as well to go further clear at the top of the Premier League with a win in this match at lunchtime would just be a great boost for them, to have in their locker and to have that extra bit of rest and all the rest of it. But no, they are now going to be behind the curve, and it's an opportunity for everybody else to claw away at that lead. Anyway, so we were going to talk about Liverpool here from Arne Slot. He was talking about having to adjust how they play for this match. He won't have to think about it now because the derby match is off at Goodison. So the match between Everton and Liverpool in the last few minutes has been postponed. But let's have a look at what Storm Darragh is also doing to the rest of the sport.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Pep Guardiola has dominated English football since his arrival, winning 6 out of 8 titles. I went to pick his brains on his own journey and how he sees football development in this country.
Starting in my little town, when I was born, like all, the child in the neighborhoods, like in that time was no traffic lights in my little town, no cars, and all the time in the street. And after Academy Barcelona came, arrived with 13 years old, so all my life was there. And everything the Academy of Barcelona gave me, absolutely everything. Aware for the game, aware from how you have to behave, in a group of people, respect the managers and the institution, and everything. The club is more important than you. Accept that you are not good enough, you don't have to play, the effort, accept the defeats. Many details the sport teach you was there.
How important, Pep, was mentors in your life?
Mentors, Johan Cruyff was basically, when it's a little bit more mature. In that 30, you had a boy, away from a home, live in a residence, and the manager was a father figure in that moment. And you are lucky to find, the right ones.
You've been to Germany, obviously, Spain, Barcelona, England, Man City. If you're looking at the players now that have come through the teams that you've managed, why are those players so good, Pep? Is it just natural? Is Phil Foden just natural?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Natural skills is not enough.
Is it more difficult now to bring young players through?
It depends on the quality they have. It's difficult. It's a good question. It's difficult because always had the feeling the young players that we loan or we sell or didn't get the minutes, like Cole Palmer, for example.
Yeah.
If I would have give them, but not just catch the cold and explode, in terms it's unbelievable, and he deserves all this success and this season in Chelsea. It's not happen. If I would have give them the minutes that maybe deserve it, surrounded for David Silva, Vincent Kompany, all the big players there, put it there. They will have played good, absolutely. I know that. But in the moments, in that level, that you have to win for all the titles. You don't have too much time to, okay, let's see. Have to be, Phil Foden arrive, you see something like the impact has to be
straight away. Yeah.
Otherwise,
that's brought the level up. It's competition, Pep.
Yeah, right. It's a jungle. I see now a national team from England. So imagine the time like a Lampard or Gerrard or Scholes, Ferdinand and Terry, Wayne Rooney, all these players. They were bad. And look now.
I know.
Phil and Saka and Hurricanes and all the players. And it will come. In 10 years' time, we'll see English national team and say, oh my God, what a player this one. It's natural selection.
My next stop took me to Spain to see a manager who's won league titles in Europe's top 5 divisions. Not to mention 5 Champions Leagues. It takes a brave boss to play the kids at the very best clubs. But what drives Carlo Ancelotti's philosophy when it comes to picking young players?
I start playing football and to have a passion for football when I was really young, 7, 8 years old. And then slowly, I grew up, and when I first started to think about to be a professional is when, at 15, left my family and I went to Parma to play in the academy of Parma and to study in Parma. I lived for 4 years in Catholic college, really tough, really strong. Yeah. Who I am now is because was the experience that...
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Still to come on The Breakfast Show, we'll be discussing the stories making news today with journalists Shona Craven and Christian Calgie.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure.
Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters.
We love Trump!
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was the president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor, free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
It's a Premier League Double Derby weekend on USA. First, on Saturday, Liverpool look to strengthen their title run against Everton in the Merseyside derby. Then Sunday, Chelsea aim to stay in the hunt when they face Tottenham in a London derby.
And this meeting might shift the dial in that derby.
The Premier League Double Derby weekend on USA.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back to our news review. This morning I'm joined by community editor and columnist at The National. It's Shona Craven and senior political correspondent at the Daily Express, Christian Calgie. Great to have you with us this Saturday. Great company. We're going to start with the eye, Shona. Labour drops NHS pledge to cut A&E waiting times to 4 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great, does it, at all? Because 4 hours already seems like a very long wait, I think, to a lot of people. And there's a little bit of sleight of hand going on here where if you actually look at the Labour manifesto, they didn't have this in it, perhaps acknowledging that it's not achievable. This target hasn't been met since 2015. And yeah, a lot of people will look at that and think that is a bit of an admission of defeat very early on. But of course, the problem with NHS targets is that they can have unintended consequences on other things. And one of the things we know about A&E waiting times is that a lot of people are going to A&E who actually shouldn't be going to A&E because they can't get GP appointments. And it's suggested within this story that there's warnings that prioritising one aspect of care risks undermining others. You do have this target of 92% of patients being treated for routine surgery within 18 weeks. That sounds good, that sounds realistic. But of course the question is then, in achieving that, are they going to not be achieving other things? It's always the case with NHS targets. They sound good, but you can't have everything, so you've got to prioritise one thing. And I mean, it doesn't make for a good headline at this point, but it also wouldn't make for a good headline later when it's Labour failed to meet target that they promised.
Yeah,
well, and of course, I think it's the third sort of watering down, as well as the economic growth one and the renewables. So I don't really understand this Starmer's big relaunch. It's not quite provided them with the
well, they
the
had that big
balance.
setting, didn't they, at Pinewood, and that 42-page booklet.
Yes.
Because it's not a manifesto, but it felt like some kind of pre-election gamble.
It's well, I think it should have happened before the election. That's the reality. The fact that it took them 5 months after the election to sort of spell out what their goals are is astonishing. So, you know, as we were just saying before we came on air, we've now had the five. Whatever, the five pledges, the 6 milestones, the economic foundations, the economic pillars, the 6 first steps. I mean, it's just, you know, I can't keep up with it. And goodness knows what ordinary punters are thinking.
But ordinary punters will be interested in the story in the Mail today about that pledge from Labour to build 1.5 million homes.
Yes, well, talking of pledges, they have actually kept this one, but it seems like there's a real tension between Labour in Westminster and Labour at local government level. We've had Yvonne Gagan, the leader of West Lancashire Borough Council, saying that the targets are impossible and unrealistic, and saying that they're on a collision course with the government. So they're her sort of objection. The Labour's increased West Lancashire's targets from 166 homes a year, which is just pathetically low, to 605, which in my mind still sounds quite low. But she's saying that, you know, they're 99% green belt, even though actually one of Labour's, what I would describe as a sort of positive moves, one of Rayner's positive moves is saying, you know, get building on the green belt, guys. You know, stop and when you're building on brownfield, do it more densely. But yeah, I just think actually I'd really like to see some sort of top-down butt kicking on this, because clearly councils are failing, and the idea that you'd start kicking off about having to build 605 homes in a year is just ridiculous.
Yeah. OK, we're going to have a gear change now. That's shown now. This is in The Guardian. It's page 4, and the Archbishop of Canterbury has apologised. Now, he was accused of making light-hearted comments, wasn't he? He was following the allegations of safeguarding and failures within the Church of England.
I mean, just staggering. I think everything about this is extraordinary. So this is obviously... We've had the speech, we've had the outrage, and now we're having the apology. But unfortunately, I think because this is now getting to smaller columns in the papers, I don't think the story does justice to how offensive the speech was, because he does say, he says, if you pity anyone, pity my poor diary secretary, which is an extraordinary thing to say when you're talking about victims of serious abuse, which of course is why he had to resign. But also what's not mentioned is this comment about a head was required to roll, and then he made some reference to an 18th century predecessor. Oh, hopefully, you know, not literally. And then he said in this case, there was only one head that rolls well enough. I just think the idea that, oh, they had to take my head because they needed one, no personal accountability being accepted whatsoever. It's all just a joke and a jape to him, which is staggering given why he actually had to resign.
Yeah, it's just astonishing, isn't it, that we've had... He's had to resign... you know, then he makes a speech about his resignation, and then he's had to apologise for the speech about his resignation. I mean, it's just a complete farce, isn't it?
It's lucky he didn't manage to fit in another joke in his apology, for which he would then have to apologise again.
Yeah, at the heart of this, there are victims, and that's really important to
And
know.
it's not his diary secretary who's the victims at all.
Christian, let's talk reform.
Yes, The Times has a sort of weekend long read talking about can reform win the next election. Nigel Farage at a Spectator Awards do this week joked that, and he won Best Newcomer, but joked, or warned, I should say, that there'll be a lot more reform newcomers, hundreds after the next election. And it's something clearly that the Tories and Labour are very, very scared about. There's a stat here that research, I think, by the Labour Party has suggested that 1 in 5 voters are now three-way floaters between the Tories, Labour and Reform. And indeed, there's a sign, you know, whilst Reform only won five seats at the election, obviously that was massively distorted by our electoral system. And we've got the Welsh elections next year, where Reform are on course to do very, very well, possibly going into second in terms of votes and seats. And then, of course, you've got the Scottish elections the year after, where again there's been a sort of a quieter rise. Maybe not, you know, they're not at the sort of 20 points that they're in the national polls, but still doing surprisingly well for Scotland. And I think it's something that the main parties are both, you know, rightly very worried about.
OK. Shona, I want for you to take viewers through a story that you picked from the Daily Telegraph about some village bells being chimed and why there's a bit of a row.
Yeah, I love the way this has been reported. Someone's had good fun with a village newcomer's complaint over the decision to allow the local church's bells to chime overnight has fallen on deaf ears. His argument has also failed to strike a chord with the local people. He's put this online. I think it was a little bit mischievous. He said he was surprised to find that the bell was tolling on the hour every hour. And he says, in the age of phones and watches, I mean, we've had watches for a while, to be fair. Why is this still necessary? Yeah, people on Facebook have not responded very well, saying, I worry that you may hear cows mooing or the freight trains running.
I have fouled in my job, and I've not given us enough time to talk about this final story about a baby rhino that's been recovering from injury, and some grannies have knitted this colourful blanket to keep it warm.
And the grannies in question are from a care home just down the road from my childhood place in North Yorkshire in Saltburn. So shout out to them.
Claim to fame. We'll be back after the break. Bye-bye.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. On today's show, a danger to life storm brings red weather warnings to parts of the UK, with an emergency alert sent to millions at risk, telling them to stay indoors.
Yes, Storm Darragh has made landfall, leaving thousands without power, shutting major travel routes and cancelling flights, trains and buses.
Plus, in sport, in the last hour, the Merseyside derby between Liverpool and Everton at Goodison has been postponed due to the weather.
Yeah, we'll have more on that shortly. It's Saturday, the 7th of December. So Storm Darragh hits the UK with 90-mile-per-hour winds and waves of up to 7 metres. Of course, we'll be live in Wales this morning, where bridges have been closed, flights cancelled and trains delayed, with people told not to travel. Also ahead, South Korea's president apologises for plunging the country into political turmoil. Well, this morning, Parliament will vote on whether to impeach him. The FBI offers a $50,000 reward to help find a gunman who killed a health insurance boss in New York. And rising from the ashes, Notre Dame Cathedral reopens 5 years after being destroyed by fire.
Also ahead, Pep Guardiola has attempted to play down his recent war of words with Jose Mourinho. We'll explain what's happened between the pair.
Yeah, welcome along to breakfast. We will get more on Storm Darragh in a moment, but first, there is some breaking news to bring you. And Prince William will meet President-elect Donald Trump when they both arrive in Paris for the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. His Royal Highness will also meet First Lady Jill Biden at the UK ambassador's residence. That's in Paris. It's Donald Trump's first overseas visit, of course, since winning the US presidential election last month. Also, Ukraine's President Zelensky is expected to be among world leaders marking the reopening of the cathedral. So that's the very latest there. But shall we turn our attentions now to our top story, and that red danger to life warning in place in parts of Wales and the southwest of England too. This is Storm Darragh. It's making landfall. There are winds of up to 93 miles per hour that have already been recorded. The Met Office are warning of flying debris and falling trees. They're predicting it could be the worst storm the UK has faced in more than 2 years. Now, millions of people have been told to stay indoors, do not travel. So let's take a look at the details then. Well, the red warning covers parts of Wales, the southwest of England, and will be in place until 11 o'clock this morning. Well, a separate amber warning is in place too, stretching from southern Scotland all the way down to Cornwall, and a yellow warning is in place for virtually all other areas. Late last night, the UK government sent this warning to millions of people at risk from the storm, telling them the conditions will be too unsafe to drive and warning of significant disruption. It's warning of power outages and just urging people to prepare themselves with torches and other essential items. Well, let's cross live now to Wales. We can speak to Lisa Dowd in Penarth and Charlotte Lehman in Bangor. Charlotte, first with you, what's it been like?
Well, Leah, I tell you, Storm Darragh certainly making its presence felt here in Bangor. It's getting a right battering. There's no other way to say it, really. Those gusty winds, I've never experienced anything quite like this, as you say, reaching around 93 miles per hour. Just to, make it clear to people, the Met Office do not issue red weather warnings very often. They are serious, and they do that not to frighten people, not to scaremonger. They do that so that people in these communities across Wales and the southwest and other places are prepared, and to really tell people this is a danger to life. This is about structural damage. This is about falling trees and flying debris. So please stay in your homes between 3 and 11. It is dangerous to go out in these sorts of weather conditions. We can see that, can't we, here behind me at this Victorian pier. It's getting a right battering. And here we're supposed to be this massive Christmas concert today with thousands of people here on the pier. That had to be cancelled. Far too dangerous. People here are waiting until 11 o'clock. We're getting absolutely drenched here. It's ferocious wind. It's gusty winds. Not safe to travel. People really do need to stay indoors and wait for this to pass over. And then, of course, there's the amber weather warning in place as well for rain. So, yeah, people keeping an eye and hopefully, after those alerts on their phones, staying indoors.
Yeah, Charlotte, get inside, get a cup of coffee. Thanks so much for that update. Let's go live now to Lisa Dowd in Penarth. How's it for you, Lisa? How are you doing?
Well, there's been quite a lot of travel disruption here. First of all, the bridges that link the southwest of England to South Wales are both closed, the Severn Bridge and the Prince of Wales Bridge. At Cardiff Airport, they've closed their runway till 11 o'clock, so there's going to be disruption for Christmas travellers wanting to go to Lapland there. Football matches and rugby matches have all been cancelled, as has actually the Everton and Liverpool match, which has been called off. Roads-wise, there's a disruption with fallen trees in a number of places. The A470 is closed both ways near Merthyr. Lots of delays expected there. Trains and buses are disrupted as well, and there have been power outages for thousands of people, both in Wales, southwest England and in the Midlands as well. But in spite of all the warnings, it's been quite quiet here generally, but we've actually seen swimmers in the Severn Estuary this morning, and fishermen as well. I spoke to one of the fishermen earlier.
As a rule, I wouldn't really fish in if it's bad, or try to fish. I wouldn't even come to the coast. Well, I wouldn't even come to the coast, but yeah. Now then, as we were saying, it's not too bad. Yeah, I think we're pretty covered here, so just see how it goes.
Do you think we spoke too soon?
Could have, could have.
So what we're finding here is every now and then there is a very large gust of wind, and what people are also concerned about is this amber alert for rain, which spreads all the way down the UK, down the west coast of the UK. We could see up to 90 millimetres of rain falling between 3 to 6 hours in that period. So it could be a lot of rain for this area, which is already trying to recover from the flooding a few weeks ago, so people will be very concerned.
Lisa, for now, thank you so much for that. We're joined in the studio now by Jackie and Shimon. I can't believe those people heading into the sea and swimming, and the fishermen. You know, it's a red weather alert.
Brave or something else?
Something else, maybe. Not for breakfast TV. Determined. Very good,
Wasn't really the word I was thinking of. Anyway.
Give us a sense. That's Wales covered, Shimon. What about the rest of the UK? How's it looking?
Well, this storm really has caused havoc for many people. It's quite amusing looking on social media at some of these pictures. I saw a meme just now telling people to put their name and addresses on wigs in case they get blown away. But it is very serious, especially for elderly or vulnerable people, and especially considering the amount of power outages there currently are across the country. I can take you through that now. There are thousands of properties across the UK and Ireland that have been left without power. That includes more than 34,000 buildings in Wales and over 19,000 in the southwest of England. There's disruption to air travel with departure boards for airports in Bristol, Cardiff and Dublin showing a number of cancelled and delayed flights. Some flights to and from Heathrow have also been cancelled. National Rail has warned that the storm is expected to bring significant disruption too. Already in Wales, all train services west of Cardiff and on the North Wales coastline have been suspended until further notice due to a falling tree blocking the line. All stagecoach services in the Bristol area have been suspended until further notice too. And Christmas events, Leah, some Christmas events across the country have also been cancelled because of the conditions. That includes Winter Wonderland here in London, but also Christmas markets in Plymouth and in Bournemouth too.
OK, well, the message there, perhaps, if you can, stay at home, don't travel. Jackie, the sport is slowly being affected, isn't
Well, yeah,
it?
breaking news in the last half an hour is that the match that we were talking about all morning and really building up to, the Merseyside derby, has been postponed. Yeah. So the match between Everton and Liverpool, which is always so looked forward to by those fans, has been cancelled for now. And it was a very simple statement put out by Liverpool City Council just half an hour ago. They said, due to Storm Darragh, Everton FC has agreed to postpone today's Merseyside derby at Goodison Park following advice from the City Grounds Safety Advisory Group. Please stay at home and follow Met Office advice. There has been a quote from the football club as well, a little bit longer. due to the risk to safety in the local area due to strong wind gusts and an amber severe wind warning that remains in place until 6 a.m. on Sunday, today's fixture should be postponed on safety grounds. And while we appreciate this will be deeply disappointing for supporters, the safety of fans, staff and players is of paramount importance, and all tickets purchased for the original fixture will remain valid for the rearranged fixture. Now, it was going to be significant because this was an early kick-off, a lunchtime kick-off, and it would have meant that Liverpool, for a short time at least, could have further extended their gap at the top of the Premier League. And it would have been Arne Slot's, it would have been 10 points if they'd won.
Yeah.
It would have been Arne Slot's first Merseyside derby, and he was talking in his press conference about it yesterday, having to adapt perhaps to the conditions. And for Everton, who won this fixture 2-0 last year, it was an opportunity for the first time in 40 years to win this fixture back-to-back. They've not done that. And when they won it last year, it was the first time they'd won this fixture in 14 years. So when we heard this morning that the horse racing at Aintree was...
You had a suspicion, didn't you?
I thought, well, it's not that far away. What on earth is the weather going to be like in Merseyside for the football? And, yeah, just a few minutes later, that was postponed as well. So, yeah,
and
Merseyside
final match too at Goodison.
It's the final, yeah, it would have been the final Merseyside derby at Goodison. So I think, you know, a lot of fans would have been really looking forward to it and making a real effort to go there. And, of course, for fans who travel up, you know, Liverpool fans perhaps, or Everton fans who live outside of Merseyside who were travelling, then it's obviously too late for them. They were already well on their way on their journey. So, you know, lost journeys for them, but the right decision, no doubt.
OK. And that's going to be a bit of a headache, I wonder, to rearrange this, just in terms of the games that Liverpool will have already in place.
I mean, Liverpool are doing so well, and they have really been the standout side this season. You know, they're going to be fighting on all fronts till very late in the season, so they're going to have a very, very busy schedule anyway. But they have to, you know, they've got to fulfil this fixture. They simply have to, and they'll find a space. But no doubt it'll probably be at some very inconvenient time to all those fans who thought they were going to a match on a Saturday, and it might not end up being on a Saturday.
All right, Jackie, Shaman, thank you so much. We've got everyone covered with Storm Darragh this morning. We're going to move on, though. We're going to bring you up to date with some other stories this Saturday worth mentioning. And the FBI has offered a $50,000 reward to help find the gunman who killed a health insurance boss in New York. Brian Thompson was shot outside a hotel in Manhattan. This was on Wednesday. Now, police found a backpack which they believe belonged to the suspect, who has been on the run ever since. Detectives say they believe the person responsible has now fled the city. The New York Police Department has also offered a $10,000 reward for anyone with information that leads to that arrest. Syrian rebel forces claim they're closing in on the city of Homs. The militants have already captured 2 major cities, and if they do take Homs, they'll then have their sights set on Damascus, President Assad's seat of power. Elsewhere, a top Romanian court has annulled the first round of the country's presidential election. It comes after allegations that Russia used platforms such as TikTok and Telegram to promote the far-right candidate Carlin Georgescu. And the Princess of Wales has hosted her annual carol concert at Westminster Abbey in what was arguably her most poignant Christmas service to date. Kate was supported by her husband, Prince William, her children and other members of the royal family. The Princess has been gradually returning to public duties after being treated for cancer, which was a theme that was clear throughout the service. Notre Dame Cathedral will reopen today, 5 years after the famous French landmark was devastated by a fire. This is what it looks like now, that iconic building. Well, it went up in flames, didn't it? That was back in 2019. And as you can see, back then, the roof and the spire completely engulfed. At the time, it was described by the Vatican as a sad day for the symbol of Christianity around the world. And it does remain unclear to this day what caused the fire. Authorities saying perhaps an electrical fault or a burning cigarette. Maybe that was responsible. We still don't know. Well, President Macron declared the 12th century relic would be restored in just 5 years. And it has been achieved. The £500 million refurbishment was funded by global donations. It's involved 2,000 workers carrying out deep cleaning, technical upgrades and structural improvements. And a series of events to celebrate the reopening will happen today, this being the first, of course. And among those, attending today's ceremony is none other than Donald Trump in what will be his first overseas trip since winning the US presidential election last month. He will meet Prince William ahead of that ceremony. Our international affairs correspondent Dominic Waghorn is in the French capital for us. Good to see you, Dominic. This is Donald Trump, President-elect's first world stage event. Which Donald Trump can we expect to see today?
I think we're going to see a proud Donald Trump and a Donald Trump who's going to be flattered shamelessly by the French president. And there will be a lot of diplomacy and a shameless projection of French soft power later. But more about that in a second. I think the day obviously will belong most of all to this place behind me. We've got a very good view of the cathedral there. Under the crane, towering above it still. And apart from the scaffolding that's still sort of clad to the back of the building, it has been restored very faithfully to its original design, apart from on the top of the 93-metre spire, a golden rooster, symbol of rebirth. And anybody who was here on that day, as I was, or watched it on television, I think has it sort of seared in their memories, those moments as that spire came crashing in flames down through the roof of the building. And for me, the memory I hold the most in my mind, sort of emotionally, was the banks of the Seine lined by thousands of Parisians in silence. You could have heard a pin drop that night, and one French father with his toddler on his shoulders saying that as he was crying, saying, "I'm here to stand alongside an old friend." And as he was talking about that, Emmanuel Macron was in front of the building with the smoke still rising from its ashes, promising to restore it within 5 years, something that seemed extremely ambitious at the time, but French people and around the world, a lot of Americans as well, gave a lot of money. So children opened their piggy banks, pensioners broke into their savings and donated 850 million euros. 340,000 people gave donations and made the restoration of the building possible. And it's going to be used today, not just to sort of show off that achievement, but also French President Emmanuel Macron will be trying to leverage some diplomatic progress out of this. So he's invited not just Donald Trump, but also heads of state from around the world. And he will use this, as he did Bastille Day on July 2017, to try and flatter Donald Trump, appeal to his insatiable appetite for flattery, and appeal to his ego. And on that stage, he may also try and contrive some kind of meeting between Donald Trump and President Zelensky. The Ukrainian leader is also expected here. So it's going to be a momentous day for the French, as they, I think, will be filled with pride at their extraordinary achievement at restoring this building, but also a big day for French diplomacy and for the French president trying to make the most of the day as it proceeds. And we see ultimately meetings at the Élysée Palace where the leaders will meet the French president, who will try and achieve some kind of diplomatic breakthrough, I think.
OK, Dominic, thank you. Dominic Waghorn there in Paris for breakfast. Still to come. On The Breakfast Show, thousands are left without power. Storm Darragh batters the UK. We will bring you the very latest after a short break.
We've come to one of Moscow's Cold War bunkers. It was built as a top-secret command centre.
Being here really feels like you're stepping back in time. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
A show of military might and menace.
Courage, bravery and sacrifice will win the day.
It's a new subject. They'll learn about combat drones and some how to handle a Kalashnikov.
The Kremlin continues to put forward its own version of events, both present and past.
There's no mention of the fact that Russia invaded its neighbour. That's rewriting history, isn't it?
Now we have to read it carefully.
Vladimir Putin put forward his plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine, telling Kiev, pull out of your eastern territories and the war will end. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Vladimir Putin is already the Kremlin's longest-serving leader since Stalin. The question is, what will a fifth Putin term mean for Russia and the world?
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Seagal?
I can't answer questions that stupid.
I've watched Vladimir Putin attempt to create a new world order.
The St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the backdrop to Vladimir Putin's latest verbal volley that Russia could send missiles to other nations to target the West. Ambassador, I wonder, shall we have a quick word for Sky News? Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine?
Swedish media, oh my God, you're not afraid of being here.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
Russia says Evan Gershkovich was caught red-handed, but has never produced any evidence to back that up. Sky News. Get the full story first.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle. Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
OK, welcome back to Sky News Breakfast. We're going to go now to South Korea. We've got a bit of breaking news because the voting has begun in that motion to impeach President Yoon after his martial law that he brought in earlier this week. Protesting then ensued. So that's the very latest. We'll get Cordelia Lynch, our correspondent there from Seoul, to give us the very latest. But South Korea's President Yoon did go on to apologise for the, I suppose, the political turmoil that ensued after imposing that martial law earlier this week. And now we know that the country's parliament is due, and they are voting on that, to remove him from office. So that address that he made over several days after imposing martial law was brought with much frustration from some sections of South Korea. Shall we go live now to Cordelia Lynch? As I said, she's in the capital. And that breaking news, Cordelia, that voting has started, which could lead to the impeachment of President Yoon.
That's right, voting has started, but it will not count, as we understand it, because they simply don't have enough members inside the Assembly to be able to carry out this impeachment vote in the normal way. And that is because members of the ruling party, the president's PPP party, have decided to boycott it. A large number walked out of the National Assembly behind me, deciding that they would walk rather than declare their decision publicly. And I think that will lead to a lot of controversy and a lot of anger. The public here in South Korea were already very frustrated by martial law being imposed and how long it has taken for the president to apologise for those actions. And now we have this enormous moment, this big political occasion where people were hoping, many, that the president would ultimately be punished for what he did. And instead, they will have to wait, we think, possibly days to try and vote again. We saw these intriguing, very striking images from inside the Assembly in the past few minutes, which just showed lots of empty seats. Members of the ruling party walking out around an hour or so ago, deciding not to be part of this process. And while politics there happens, outside on the street there is protest. We are seeing thousands of people here in freezing cold temperatures gathered together, lots of people
saying that the president should not only be impeached but should be imprisoned too. So we will have to wait and see how this plays out in the hours to come. This is a nation with a very rich history of protest, and I think we will see things really ratchet up in the next few hours as the news starts to seep in amongst them that in fact the politicians that represent them just weren't willing to declare their vote.
This is fascinating, Cordelia. How do you think this will be viewed by Russia, by North Korea? Because they'll be watching this very closely.
Yes, I think what this week has done is really just create uncertainty in the global community. Now, we haven't heard from North Korea. There's been no official statements from Pyongyang, but we have heard from the Americans, who are, of course, a critical ally to South Korea. They have around 30,000 troops stationed here, and South Korea represents an important check on North Korea, a counterweight to China's aggression too. So America watches very closely what happens here, and I think it has shaken everyone's confidence in this very established democracy. It's just sowed these seeds of doubt. Now, they were able to restore order. It was a very fleeting martial law that was imposed. It lasted just 6 hours, in fact, but nevertheless, there's kind of huge concern.
Cordelia, we'll leave it there. This is a developing story that we will touch base with a bit later, but the ruling People Party saying that they will not support this vote. So where that leaves the rest of the day, we will see. Cordelia, thank you so much. OK, let's get more on those severe wind and rain warnings in place for Storm Darragh that's hit the UK. And we can speak now to Sian William from the Welsh Government's environmental regulator, Natural Resources Wales. Great to have you with us this morning. Just give us a sense, how are you coping at the moment? Because there's that red weather warning in place for much of Wales.
Yes, as you say, red weather warning for wind for large parts of Wales today around the coast, pretty much the whole of the coastal areas. And we also have that amber warning in place for rain today as well. So our teams have been out preparing for this for the last few days as we saw the weather warnings escalate during the lead up into the weekend. So we've been out checking everything on the ground, making sure that we've got people available today. We're working hard. As I've been just waiting to come on air now, the number of flood warnings that we've got in place is increasing. So we've got 58 flood alerts now in place and 11 flood warnings, mostly in mid and west Wales. So you know the wind is giving us a bit of a battering as well. So around the coastal areas, we're closely monitoring those areas as well. We've got flood alerts out in the coastal areas. We are expecting those big waves with the high tides today too. And obviously there's a warning for people to stay away from those areas, even though it may be tempting to go and take pictures of the big waves. You know, stay away, stay safe, and also stay away from any swollen rivers as well.
And Sian, there's a particular worry, isn't there, for the elderly and the vulnerable during these times? You know, teams being able to get access to people that need the help.
Yes, obviously, we have been working closely with partners in the local authorities and the emergency services across Wales in the lead up to this. And there are meetings happening regularly with those partners during today and over the weekend as well, where we will be working together with local authorities, with the emergency services and with communities to make sure that we do, as working together, that we do what we can to help those people who may be vulnerable as well.
And Sian, I wonder, you must have got that special text message that the government sent out. What was that like, receiving something like that?
Well, for me personally, I was in my Christmas choir concert, so 4 choirs and all of the congregation and the audience all had the text message all at the same time in the middle of the concert. So yeah, that was a bit of an event. But yes, seriously though, it is, you know, it's quite a thing, isn't it? We don't get those messages very often. I think that's only the first time that I've had one other than the text message that we all had. a while ago now. So yes, it does get you watching, listening, and I think that alert for everybody to be careful and to be aware of the weather is really important in situations like this.
All right, Sean Williams, we'll leave it there. Stay safe. Sean Williams there in Bangor. Well, let's go to our correspondent, Charlotte Leeming, outside in Bangor in North Wales. Charlotte, how are you coping? You're doing brilliant this morning.
Well, thanks, Leah. I mean, it's wet, cold and windy. It's like a triple whammy of horrible weather. You know, Storm Darragh is really battering Bangor and other places, as we have seen, and it's cause for concern. There's a lot of damage and disruption. It's not often the Met Office would give a red weather warning. It's so serious, the most serious top level you can get, and it means danger to life, and that is why you got those texts last night. Millions of people got those saying to people, please stay indoors 3 till 11 this morning, wait for it to pass over. But then, of course, we've got this rain that started coming in, and that'll cause concern, won't it? We had Storm Bert not long ago. We've already got saturated ground and people dealing with flooding. They will be hoping, fingers crossed, that that doesn't cause flooding in those areas again. But the message, stay safe.
All right, Charlotte, we'll leave you there for now. Stay safe, as always. Thank you. Jack is here with all the sport. I don't know where to start, really. There's so much going on.
Does not look good there. Does not look good in Merseyside either, because the big news in the last hour is that the Merseyside derby between Everton and Liverpool has been postponed due to the weather. More on that shortly. Also, the most successful driver-team partnership in F1 history comes to an end this weekend. We'll hear from Lewis Hamilton as he lines up for his final race with Mercedes, and we're live in just a couple of minutes to Abu Dhabi to speak to Martin Blundell. Welcome back to Sky News Breakfast. Now, it's the last Formula One race of the year this weekend, and drivers are set to compete in Abu Dhabi with Sir Lewis Hamilton racing for Mercedes one last time before he moves to Ferrari next season. All eyes will undoubtedly also be on Max Verstappen and George Russell following their feud, which has had so many headlines this week. Well, let's go live straight to Abu Dhabi and speak to Sky Sports F1 commentator Martin Brundle. Martin, perhaps a bit more of an exciting week than you perhaps expected at this stage of the season, after George Russell really bared his feelings for everybody to see. What have you guys on the ground made of that spat, feud, whatever you want to call it, this week?
Lovely to talk to you. Well, you know what? I'm really happy to see the drivers, squabbling a little bit, because it seems odd that they can all be best friends and online racing mates and travel buddies and all of that sort of thing, and then race wheel to wheel at a couple of 100 miles an hour. But Max Verstappen is bossing the drivers on the track and off the track at the moment. It's very clever how he's doing that. George is standing up to him. And we've had a bit of a spat and who sat next to who at a dinner or whatever. But I think all of that's utterly irrelevant until we see what happens as they're going into a corner side by side. That's where the points are handed out. It's where the podiums and championships are handed out. So it's really quite fascinating how psychologically they're all handling this slightly differently, because Max has such incredible car control. He knows the rules. He pushes all of the limits, all of the lines, and he knows what he can get away with, what he can't. Some drivers are more compliant than others on that, and then Max gets out of the car and is very verbally aggressive too. So we'll wait and see how that plays out, but it's a fascinating turn of events to what we've seen, as you say, in the last few seasons, really.
Yeah, I'm sure, I've really got the impression from you guys that you're really quite enjoying it. Lando Norris really enjoying it too, and he's actually put out a picture on Instagram of, as you referenced, the drivers' dinner, where all of the drivers are there, and said, obviously the two that you want to know about were sitting as far away as possible. That is him obviously very much enjoying it. Last Grand Prix for Lewis Hamilton under Mercedes, and he's been talking about the emotion of it and saying goodbye to a team after 12 years. But it's been a funny year, really, because everyone's known since the beginning that he was leaving for Ferrari. Will it really be emotional for everybody?
I think it will. We've got a couple of pieces going out on Sky F1 this weekend where we talked to people around him and Lewis himself about it. And it was a very emotional day of filming, I must say, with them at Silverstone. But, they've had so many successes together, 84 victories and 6 World Championships for Lewis, 8 for the team in that time. It is one of the all-time great partnerships in global sport. And it comes to an end. Lewis is, and I'm really impressed with Mercedes, because Lewis is off to a rival team, obviously Ferrari, and they're wishing him the best of luck. They appreciate what they've achieved together, and I think when push comes to shove, and at the end of the race, it will be emotional for him. But off to Ferrari he goes, and they've got Kimi Antonelli coming in, so it's all about the next race, the next season. But, it is an extraordinary achievement they had together. They've had a topsy-turvy year. Lewis has won a couple of races. It's been difficult of late. It's going better here so far in free practice. So he'll want to end on a high. But, as he said a few times over this event, what they've achieved together is indelible. And I think that's absolutely right.
And what do you think about Lewis, where he is at the moment? Because some of his language has not been very positive in the last few weeks, and he said something like, well, I'm definitely not fast anymore. Do you think he will get a boost when he goes to Ferrari, or have they kind of gambled on him? I don't know, what do you think?
Well, Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari is just massive for Formula One, massive for him and Ferrari. So I can see why that's happened. They're losing Carlos Sainz, which is a big loss, but Lewis Hamilton will take championship knowledge with him. Give him a car that can win a race, and he can still win a race. I think Lewis's peak is behind him, but 98% of Lewis Hamilton's best is still good enough. And I think, I'm sensing that because he declared he was leaving nearly a year ago, the relationship has been a little bit strained through this year from time to time. They all need to move on now. They really do. It's the right time. And we'll see how Lewis does in a Ferrari. We're all really excited about it. And will that be new motivation for him? As he turns 40 in January, there's a lot of incredibly fast, brave young drivers on the grid who have no regard and no interest in his world titles. They just want to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them were just little kids when he won his first world title, weren't they? So qualies today, Lando Norris fastest in practice. In fact, it was McLaren 1-2. How much does that bode well as they chase down the Constructors' Championship, McLaren?
It bodes very well for them, but they also know that, you know, you can fall foul of a problem in the first part of qualifying and still end up down the grid. Or as Lando Norris found out and McLaren found out in Qatar just a week ago, just how much pain you can take during a race when he got a 10-second stop-go penalty where he had to pass through the pit lane, which stopped McLaren really dominating this year's Constructors' Championship in effect. So, but let's not forget that Charles Leclerc had to have a new battery pack, energy store as they call it, on his Ferrari for this weekend. So he's 10 places back on the grid in his Ferrari, which, you know, gives McLaren another ace card, providing they have a clean qualifying this afternoon. So you'd have to say very much advantage McLaren with that issue for Leclerc, and 21-point head start in their pocket as they go into this final Grand Prix.
And you mentioned Charles Leclerc yesterday got to practice with his younger brother Arthur because they had to give the younger drivers their quota of runs, as I understand it. But apart from the Leclerc family, who were all there to watch it, which must have been an amazing occasion for them, how much is everyone thinking, thank goodness the season is over, we're all really tired, and at the end of it, it's become a little bit toxic? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think it's toxic. It's just competitive. And I've been doing this 42 years now, so I long ago stopped wishing away the seasons because they keep turning around and disappearing on us. So I don't see people in this paddock leaning in and surviving as much as I thought I would, to be honest, in the longest season in the history of Formula 1, 24 races. It's a privilege to work in this business, a privilege to see the world and to travel. It is hard. It's very hard for people, but no, I think we're all looking forward to it. We're looking forward to next season. We're looking forward to the championship for the constructors this weekend, obviously being decided. And a quarter of this grid probably won't be on the grid in Melbourne at the first race next year. 5 of the drivers are moving out or what have you, and 1 or 2 of those yet to be decided. So there's all change going on. And we're looking forward to an exciting race, big crowd here, and no, I certainly don't feel toxicity, and I don't feel that we've run out of steam. We're all pretty excited.
Do you know what, Martin? I think you're ever going to run out of steam. Really appreciate you taking time out in Abu Dhabi to talk to us, because I know you're super busy and it's a really long day for you because it's lots of things happen at night as well. So I'm looking forward to those legendary pit walks later. Thank you very much indeed.
Never too busy to talk to you.
What a charmer, Martin. Thank you.
He was nice.
He is. No, he's great. He's really great. And do you know what? I love that. The fact that he's been in Formula One his entire life and never loses enthusiasm for it. He's always got such great passion for the sport, which is what you want from your your pundits.
Absolutely.
And amazing, such incredible knowledge as well. But I don't know if we showed the photograph in that chat of the drivers' dinner. We did have it, but it was quite telling that the two feuding drivers. Apparently, the drivers left a spare seat next to Max Verstappen,
keeping them
to see if George Russell would sit in it because George was late, and he didn't. He just took the chair and sat at the other end of the table.
I can't remember a spat like this in sport for a very long time.
It's good because sport's getting quite boring in that regard. They're all friends, they're all mates, and it was just so much better when, Wenger and Fergie really hated each other.
That, yes.
It was great. From our perspective.
It was great.
Everyone's too kind now, aren't they?
Well, they are, including the guy behind our shoulders. I don't know if you can see it, Arne Slot.
Oh, he does seem a very chill guy, doesn't he? it was going to be a really big day for him today. It was going to be his first Merseyside derby in charge of Liverpool as they went to Goodison, the last Merseyside derby at Goodison, and this morning it's been postponed because of the weather. We kind of suspected it might happen because they cancelled Aintree slightly before, and obviously very, very same neck of the woods. The statement that came out from the club was due to the risk of safety in the local area, due to strong wind gusts and an amber severe wind warning that remains in place until 6 a.m. on Sunday. Today's fixture should be postponed on safety grounds. Whilst we appreciate this will be deeply disappointing for supporters, the safety of fans, staff and players is of paramount importance. And the key thing, of course, all tickets purchased for the original fixture will remain valid for the rearranged fixture, whenever that is. Now, our reporter Ben Ransom is outside Goodison Park for us right now, and this is what he's been talking about this morning.
The decision was taken at around 8:30 this morning, made official when Everton Football Club, in agreement with Liverpool City Council, had to call this game off. And the weather conditions here on Merseyside have been absolutely awful today. Driving over, there was lots of standing water on the motorway, on the A roads around Liverpool. I saw a tree had fallen down, and the rain was absolutely hammering in. We found a little break in the weather to be able to record this, but the winds are really high, and that really is the dangerous element of this storm. Gusts expected of up to 70 miles an hour to hit Liverpool today. The race meeting at Aintree had also been called off a bit earlier on. They had a morning inspection that was due to feature the Beecher Chase, which is run on the same course as the Grand National. They'd made that decision to call that meeting off, so I guess once that had been made, the decision to call this game off was a lot easier when you consider that nearly 40,000 fans would have been packing in here to Goodison Park. So the decision made, this game has been postponed to be rearranged at a later date, and the famous old stadium Goodison Park will have to wait just a little bit longer to host its final Merseyside derby in the Premier League.
So Ben Ransom there really struggling with that wind already. You can see why, just why the Merseyside derby has been postponed today. Let's have a look at the rest of the sport.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Pep Guardiola has dominated English football since his arrival, winning 6 out of 8 titles. I went to pick his brains on his own journey and how he sees football development in this country.
Starting in my little town, when I was born, like all, you know, the child in the neighborhoods, like in that time was no traffic lights in my little town, no cars, and all the time in the street. And after Academy Barcelona came, arrived with 13 years old, so all my life was there. And everything the Academy of Barcelona gave me, absolutely everything. Aware for the game, aware from how you have to behave, you know, in a group of people, you know, respect the managers and the institution, and everything. The club is more important than you. Accept that you are not good enough, you don't have to play, the effort, accept the defeats. Many details the sport teach you was there.
How important, Pep, was mentors in your life?
Mentors, Johan Cruyff was basically, when I was a little bit more mature. In that 30, you had a boy, you know, away from a home, living in a residence, and the manager was a father figure in that moment. And you are lucky to find, you know, the right ones.
You've been to Germany, obviously, Spain, Barcelona, England, Man City. If you're looking at the players now that have come through the teams that you've managed, why are those players so good, Pep? Is it just natural? Is Phil Foden just natural?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Natural skills is not enough.
Is it more difficult now to bring young players through?
It depends on the quality they have. It's difficult. It's a good question. It's difficult because always had the feeling the young players that we loan or we sell or didn't get the minutes, like Cole Palmer, for example.
Yeah.
If I would have give them, but not just catch the cold and explode, like in terms like it's unbelievable, and he deserves all this success and this season in Chelsea. It's not happen. If I would have give them the minutes that maybe deserve it, surrounded for David Silva, Vincent Kompany, all the big players there, put it there. They will have played good, absolutely. I mean that. But in the moments, in that level, you know that you have to win for all the titles. You don't have too much time to, you know, okay, let's see. Have to be, Phil Foden arrive, you see something like the impact has to be
straight away.
Straight away.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
that's brought the level up. It's competition, Pep.
Yeah, right. It's a jungle. I see now national team from England. So imagine the time like a Lampard or Gerrard or Scholes and Ferdinand and Terry, Wayne Rooney, all these players. They were bad. And look now.
I know.
Phil and Saka and Hurricanes and all the players. And it will come. In 10 years' time, we'll see English national team and say, oh my God, what a player, this one. It's natural selection.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Thanks, Jackie. Still to come on Sky News Breakfast, thousands have been left without power. Storm Darragh batters the UK. We'll bring you the very latest after the break.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters.
We love Trump!
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was the president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
It's a Premier League double derby weekend on USA. First, on Saturday, Liverpool look to strengthen their title run against Everton in the Merseyside derby. Then Sunday, Chelsea aim to stay in the hunt when they face Tottenham in a London derby.
And this meeting might shift the dial to that derby.
The Premier League double derby weekend on USA.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, as you can see, I'm joined in the studio by my girls who've been keeping us up to date on Storm Darragh. We've got Shaman, we've got Kirsty, and of course we've got Jackie. Red weather alerts across parts of Wales. Shaman, what has the UK looked like so far?
There's been so much disruption, Leah, especially for transportation. There's been multiple airports across the country cancelling, delaying flights as well. We've heard from Network Rail, who said that they're expecting there to be quite a lot of disruption on the rail lines too. But I think the most significant impact that this storm has had is on power outages. We've got tens of thousands of buildings across the UK and Ireland currently without power. Wales seems to be one of the worst affected, with around 35,000 buildings currently without electricity. Also been lots of issues with events that have been cancelled too.
We've also seen people swimming in the sea in parts of Wales, Kirsty. There's a word to describe that. We won't use it.
Dedication.
Dedication,
I
forgot. Dedication. How long is this going to last, this bad weather, this storm?
The worst of the weather is really happening right now. The red wind warning we've talked about, that will expire around 11 o'clock. So the conditions will improve slightly once we get past that into the afternoon. But saying that, it stays very wet and very windy, really, for many of us right through the weekend. So it's a widespread part of the UK has been affected by Storm Darragh, really big impacts. The red and the amber warnings will gradually ease off as we go through the day, but the yellow staying right through for some of us into tomorrow. After that, once Storm Darragh goes, turning colder again with frost and fog.
OK, it's had a knock-on effect for the footy, Jackie.
Well, the biggest casualty has been the match we were talking about all morning until it was postponed, which is the Merseyside derby between Everton and Liverpool. It would have been the last derby match at Goodison Park before Everton moved to their new stadium, and it would have been Arne Slot's first Merseyside derby. And, of course, Liverpool flying high at the top of the Premier League. They could have gone 10 points clear if they'd won, and for Everton, if they'd won, it would have been back-to-back victories in this fixture, which they won last year, 2-0, for the first time in 40 years. So everyone was looking forward to it. You know, and the 245th Merseyside derby will happen, just not today.
OK. Well, listen, Storm Darragh, as Kirsty said, is the worst of it is happening now. If you can, do stay home. I think it's Matt Barbette that's up next. Dare him step in the studio with all of us in charge. But do stay with Sky News. So many top stories, South Korea, and obviously Trump is in Paris too. Thanks so much for your company. We'll see you tomorrow, but stay with Sky News for the rest of the afternoon. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.